He's new in town, and nothing belongs to him. Not the music.
Where's he from?
Not the school.
Whoa.
Not the girl.
Things you don't understand.
Then enlighten me.
If I ever catch you near Frankie again, I'll take you out so fast.
To get what he wants. Morgan Hill is going to take this town apart. Tuff Turf. Rated R.
Now playing. Check local listings.
In a world where podcasts reign supreme, two friends dare to ask, do you even movie? Hosted by filmmaker Henrique Couto and movie aficionado David D. Neuer. Spoiler alert.
I know that it's a struggle with all the new 4Ks you want.
There is a lot of sales going on lately, and it's one of those situations where there's movies that I absolutely love that I want in 4K, and then there's some where it's like, well, it would be nice to have X, not X the movie in 4K. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would like X in 4K, but
oh well. Yeah, what's wrong with X? What do you want? Why don't you want X to be in 4K?
I don't know. It's nothing wrong with. I've seen X once in theaters, and I've watched it once again. I mean, as we were talking when we left the movies a little bit ago, Pearl is absolutely the best one of the series.
Oh yeah.
So, but at the same time, I mean, I just since I got your 4K TV, I've been expanding into my 4Ks a little bit more.
Imagine.
I know, it's crazy.
Because you could watch them.
Because I can watch them now. Because literally our good friend Rob had gotten me The Crow in 4K because I had gotten it when I didn't have a 4K TV yet. So that was one that was just sitting on the shelf. And then when I realized I could watch that along with everything else I'd bought recently, because a lot of the Vincent titles just are 4K now.
Well, and you had a 4K title or a TV that had died not too long ago.
Right as I was getting ready to watch Silent Night Bloody Night or Silent Night Deadly Night at a time I needed to. And it was sadness.
A medicinal Silent Night, Deadly Night viewing.
Night. Yes.
That's fair.
That's healthy, too.
Extremely healthy. And just a little Catholic.
Just a little bit.
Just Catholic enough as a treat.
Not as Catholic as Terrifier 3, though, but that's a whole nother conversation.
No, well, I mean, they're two of my favorite Christmas. But then again, is it any shock that the best Christmas horror movies are going to be a bit Catholic? The best Christmases are Catholic.
There's
I mean, if you want to go by just sheer opulence and ritual and singing and merriment, they really have it. They have it locked down.
Speaking of Terrifier 3, there's a novelization coming out of that now soon as well.
Oh, part 3?
Part 3 is getting a novelization by Tim Wagner, the same guy that did Halloween Kills and Ends novelization. I think he did the 2 or he did the first one. I can't remember which. And then he also did the Terrifier 2 novelization.
Oh.
Which is on my list for this year because I actually did pick it up recently.
Nice. That sounds good.
I'm genuinely curious how much more detail is going to be inside of that book. It is 400 pages, mind you.
400 pages.
Terrifier 2 novelization is like that thick.
I mean, I get it. I get it. I think.
I mean, I'm a sucker for novelization. I mean, we've been over this on the show before because I've been reading Armando Minaz's novelizations for Stop the Killer, which included Black Christmas recently. I finished Silent Night Deadly Night during Christmas, and then the first one I read was My Bloody Valentine, and now I believe the next one he has coming out, because he's already released Basket Case and Happy Birthday to Me, and I think there's another one coming out, and now I cannot remember Mad Men. I think he's doing Mad Men.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I love the idea of this this brave new world of novelizations.
Yeah.
I just wish they would do it the way it used to be and hand them the first draft of the screenplay and be like, don't you base it on the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You base it on this script that never got filmed because we didn't have the money.
That's my RoboCop 2 novelization is based off of Frank Miller's original screenplay. So I haven't had a chance to read it yet, except I will say one of my biggest pet peeves about the RoboCop novelization so far is the line, "Your move, creep," not in the book.
What?
Yeah, that was an improvised.
That must have been just a piece of glorious improvisation.
Yeah.
Well, I'm proud. So there you go.
And also, he does not shoot the guy in the dick in the book. He shoots him right through the head.
All right, well, that's sacrilege.
I know.
Now I'm upset.
How are you going to have a RoboCop novelization and not have a guy get shot in the dick?
We truly are in the darkest timeline.
In the darkest timelines, indeed.
So speaking of a dark timeline, we just got back from seeing The Monkey.
We did.
And you hated it.
I did not. I did not. That's an understatement,
I like
sir.
to set you up and then knock you down.
I mean, I was already amped for the movie because I'm a slut when it comes to Stephen King adaptations.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt.
When it comes to Stephen King adaptations, I'm a slut. The good, the bad, the ugly, I will watch them all. I still have not seen the new Salem's Lot, and I've had a lot of people tell me it's good and tell me it's bad, so I'm curious to get to that one. But his short stories make some of the most interesting films by far, in my opinion, because Maximum Overdrive is based off trucks. It's a short story. Children of the Corn, short story.
Right.
You've got The Raft, which is the Creepshow 2 story. I mean, I could go on and on, but like his major films, like don't get me wrong, I love It, I love The Stand. For what it's worth, I love The Langoliers. But
oh well, that's fun.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of Stephen King adaptations that are not very good, and they're so good. Mm-hmm. They're so fun to watch.
One of the ones that is kind of getting its due because it was one that I got late to in the game, Apt Pupil, with oh man, what is that guy's name? Steve? Not Steve. Shut up.
Oh, I was just trying to
help. It's gonna bug me now. Hang on.
Sorry, everybody else.
Sorry. It is Brad Renfro and Ian McKellen, where Renfro discovers that Ian McKellen used to be in the SS and he's his neighbor, and he basically blackmails him into like telling him all about it.
Oh wow,
dude, it's fucked up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, is there a child gangbang, or is it not as good as It?
There's not that in that.
Okay, fair.
But David Schwimmer also appears in Apt Pupil.
Oh,
yeah.
I do like me some David Schwimmer.
Yeah, from what year was that? It's 1998.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a like a blackout period. There were a lot of King things, but they're not really in the nostalgia space.
Well, and the reason it kind of fell off the radar for a little bit, directed by Bryan Singer.
Why you gotta hate on Singer?
You stop.
We would have no Trick or Treat if it weren't for Singer.
For real?
He was the producer.
Oh shit, he was.
Yeah, a lot of people have theorized that that's why the movie sat on the shelf for like 4 years, was to punish him.
Yeah, to punish him
for failings with Man of Steel, was it?
That and also the allegations that came out.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, he had allegations come out around the second of his X-Men movies, I want to say.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't recall that at all.
But no, Stephen King short stories make really fun films, and The Monkey is no exception.
I think that's the biggest thing is King short story adaptations make incredible movies.
Yeah.
Novels, your mileage will vary a lot.
A lot. I mean, even The Mist is a short story, technically.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. And I think The Mist is, I mean, everybody knows The Mist by this point, but like that movie has aged beautifully.
Yeah. Yeah. Unlike The Children that the guy had. So, so The Monkey.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it. I'm curious what people who were really into Longlegs are going to think, because it was nothing like Longlegs, and I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah.
It was a very different film all its own. It was not this trudging, artsy scare fest. It was not that at all.
But I also think, too, that there was a real difference in advertising for both films because they are different. So I think the fact that the Longlegs trailer, like thinking back on it, really kind of set up that movie for what it was going to be like, in my opinion.
Sure.
Whereas The Monkey has not been shy at all about how batshit this movie's going to be.
No, but trailers can only get across so much to anybody anyway. So
yeah,
that's really my only point is it was a bit wacky.
It was very wacky.
And I was mentioning in the theater, like I would call it a horror comedy, but its mindset is not really horror comedy. Its mindset is more like a full-blown dark comedy.
Yeah.
Because every moment of violence, every bloody death, everything is so ridiculous you can't take it seriously at all. Which is good though, because then you don't end up in that space I often end up with most horror comedies where I'm like, that wasn't funny. That guy like died.
Yeah.
Like, I feel bad that guy died.
It's like you made the point a while back that the problem with horror comedies, I think that we both agree on, is that sometimes when you lean too much into the comedy, it takes away the characterization of the people. Like, so when their deaths happen and they're supposed to be, oh, that's zany. It's just like, well, that shit. Like, I liked that character and like that wasn't cool.
Yeah, that was a bummer. Yeah, no, I agree. But with this, because everything is so over the top, you really can have people's deaths be comedic moments because, I mean, a woman gets shot with a shotgun and is basically
eviscerated.
No, obliterated. Like there's barely anything left of her, but little tiny pieces, and it's just a regular shotgun. Or let alone, I don't want to spoil the pool.
No,
what happens
the pool is my favorite.
But like those were the moments where I was like, okay, this is its own rules.
Yeah,
and I'm okay with that. So I had a great time with it, and I actually thought the ending really stuck the landing.
Absolutely did.
Of being heartfelt and sincere.
Yeah. No, the one thing that I will say about the monkey is it is a barrel of morbid laughs.
Funnier than a barrel full of dead people?
I mean, yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's the saying, I'm pretty sure.
For those who aren't aware, though, real quick synopsis. When two brothers, Bill and Hal, find their father's old monkey in the toy in the attic, a series of gruesome deaths starts.
Don't call it a toy.
The siblings decide to throw the toy away and move on with their lives, growing apart over the years.
Aw. That's basically
it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that gets you to there, though.
Yeah. With a shout out though to Theo James, the main actor in the film, stole the movie. I mean, not stole the movie, but like you commented on his voice being really good for one, but like
obscenely good. Like it took about, because it opens with him narrating everything, and it took me a while to get over how like incredible his narrator voice was.
Yeah,
because it was so deep, it was almost like I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But I loved it. But it was like, I was almost having trouble believing that was his voice coming out of his head.
But no, he is phenomenal in it and plays his brother as well as him in it. And it's just, the two performances are fantastic.
Yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed it. I have no complaints, no snarky thoughts. I just thought it was a lot of fun. I hope it does as well as Longlegs. I hope it's a huge success because Osgood Perkins already has another film slated for October,
which you need to stay in the theater to see a preview of. After
a little sneak preview of. It was called Keeper. That's right, and it looks great. It's got Tatiana Maslany again, who was a supporting role in The Monkey, but she appears to be the main lead in this one. I've always been a big fan of hers since Ginger Snaps 2 Unleashed. Which was, I thought, great.
Yeah.
So I've been a big fan for quite a while.
No, it's absolutely, it's going to be a good time. And The Monkey is currently playing in your theaters, so make sure you go check it out while you can.
How do you know that it's playing in their theaters?
Oh, I know.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Speaking of knowing, I also know that we watched another great movie over the weekend, which was 2025's The Gorge.
Yes, we did watch The Gorge.
Which is Scott Derrickson, who brought us Sinister, and there's another big one of his that I'm blanking on, right? Black Phone?
Yeah, which I friggin' love The Black Phone.
Starring Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy and Sigourney Weaver. This movie is just a blast for sci-fi fans, for one.
Yeah, I mean, it's I would call it light sci-fi. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is definitely science fiction, but it's kind of a light sci-fi. It's very much like a very accessible thriller.
Yeah.
It has all the elements of big action moments and wild weapons and the crazy, highly trained, highly skilled weapon experts.
Two great leads, too. I mean, their chemistry in the movie was fantastic.
It was, and I was worried it would feel forced only because the concept of their romance, I was worried would feel forced on its own.
Yeah.
Because it's like there are these two people on towers on the opposite side of this gorge, and then they start falling in love. But they did it in a really solid way.
Yeah.
They had them basically, not a big spoiler, they're both, military or post-military. They're both kind of shooters for hire.
Yeah. Could be on the way out. Who knows?
Well, and that's what they end up bonding over is the fact that they're both at the same point in their careers, which we find out is when they start considering you to guard the gorge.
Yeah.
So, basically they're guarding this giant hole in the ground Never told what's in there.
Given all the heavy artillery they could ask for.
Told some really creepy stuff, just side notes about like, oh, those are the hollow men, is what we call them. And
just a bunch of Kevin Bacons.
The best was that he gets there, he's not briefed at all. The guy he's relieving tells him everything.
Yeah.
So it's not even, like, who knows what the original instructions were. That's what I like, is it's weirdly isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And he's basically told, like, this side is the Western world side, and that side is the Eastern world side, and we each put a new guard every year to keep an eye on this and make sure anything down there doesn't get out.
But you cannot communicate with the tower across from you.
Right.
Never,
ever. And I'm sure no one ever had before. But it's super fun.
Yeah.
Really exciting. They did a good job, I felt like, of revealing all the crazy, obscenely intricate
the visuals
story.
The visuals in it, from the creatures to the action to the overall finale, is something that I was happy to, it was one of those things I was happy to see it, but I was also like, damn it, this would have played so much better in theaters, but I'm still happy that we got it.
The biggest spoiler I can give, that I'm willing to give, without hurting anybody's feelings, this is on Apple TV, for people who don't know, or forgot, or we said it, I don't know, but is they do inevitably go into the gorge. I think that's obvious, but so it's a little spoiler.
Yeah.
But when they get down there, I am not kidding. There is no way that director did not say, look, I want it to look like the end of Lucio Fulci's The Beyond.
Yeah.
Because it literally looks like the landscape they look on at the end of The Beyond.
100%.
Like, to the point where, I mean, the first thought I had the moment I saw was, oh, The Beyond.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. I mean, that's my 2 cents, but I'm pretty sure I'm right.
But yeah, it's the gorge is probably one of the. It's early in the year, but it's probably one of the best sci-fi I've seen so far.
I mean, there's a lot more sci-fi than you might realize.
There is.
Because the big tentpole streaming movies tend to be science fiction because they do better overseas with Asia, China, especially, and stuff like that. So you see a lot of Netflix ones and you see a lot of Apple ones.
Vast of the Night, is that the one that you saw at the drive-in?
Oh, that was an Amazon movie.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
That was science fiction, but that was very stilted and simple.
Yeah, no, it was.
You saw it, right?
Yeah, I watched it.
Oh my gosh, you know the part where it fades to black?
And you said that
I was at the drive-in, everybody was honking their horns. We thought that the picture had died.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
But yeah, The Gorge is currently available on Apple TV, or is it Apple Plus now?
I think it's still Apple TV.
Apple TV, but yeah, definitely recommend on that one. So The Monkey, The Gorge, those are the two that we've seen recently.
Yeah, they were really fun.
Highly recommended.
Yeah, oh gosh, yeah. And I could not agree more. Super duper fun.
Yeah.
And I also saw Heart, Eyes, and Companion
on
Valentine's Day.
You did indeed.
And great on a second watch.
Hell yeah.
Like really great on a second watch. I also took my mother for her birthday to see Flight Risk. That was my second watch. Did I tell you the thing I noticed that I never noticed before?
No.
So it's going to sound ridiculous.
Okay.
But the second time I'm watching it, I'm a little less focused on where they want you to look, you know, because I know what's going to happen. I know who's going to jump out or whatever. Wahlberg's character has like a serious hard on.
What?
Like in his pants.
Yeah.
Like, you know how he's like a psychopath? He has like a serious hard on.
Are you shitting me?
Yeah, I'm making that.
I was going to say.
What kind of movie do you think
what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, God, I'm just fucking with you. It's fun.
I will throw out one more recommendation because, unfortunately, I was sick the last couple days, so I was in my bed watching a lot of movies. And one that I came across that I've had on Blu-ray for a bit that has been on my shelf is Prince of the City, which is Sidney Lumet's corrupt cop movie starring Treat Williams. 1 hour, 168 minutes long. So it's an epic. It's an epic. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes, I want to say. And Treat Williams is playing a cop that basically gets brought in by this commission to go forward and record all these corrupt cops and bust them, essentially, because they realize that shit's going on in the precinct and whatnot. It's the same director as Serpico. I haven't seen Serpico, and I don't know how long. It's probably been at least like 15 years or so. But Prince of the City, I would say, is almost better than Serpico. And having lost Treat Williams last year.
Yeah, it was last year.
Last year, it was really great to see this performance of his because this is one that he is talked about a decent amount with a lot of people that are fans of him, but I'd never seen the movie. Warner Archive put the disc out like about 4 or 5 years ago. Cheap Blu-ray, from what I understand too, because I think I got it for like $11.
Nice.
But I mean, you're talking names like Treat Williams, Jerry Orbach. You've got Lance Henriksen at one point. You've got Lane North from My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
Playing a guy named Tug, who is like this protector of him. He's like the U.S. Marshal protecting him and his family at one point.
Yeah, he's like his muscle.
But it's based on a true story. It says New York City narcotics detective reluctantly agrees to cooperate with a special commission investigating police corruption and soon realizes he's in over his head and nobody can be trusted.
Wow.
It is a phenomenal film. Currently available to get on Prime for $4 if you want to rent it, but the Blu-ray comes with a 25 minute making of and also goes into the true story. Can't recommend it enough.
So, and before we move on to the topic, I want to mention real quick that we are going to be doing a live stream.
Yes.
Finally going to be returning to the live stream. We'll see how fun it is for me to set that up again after we haven't done it in like 8 months or something. But we're going to be streaming live. You can find all the information if you go to weeklyspooky.com/live.
Hell yeah.
It'll take you straight to the YouTube page where it will be streaming, where you can set a reminder and all that stuff. And that's where it'll be streaming, is at weeklyspooky.com/live. And that's on Saturday, March 1st.
That is correct.
We'll start around noon and probably go for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe more. Who knows?
Let's say we went long last time.
Yeah, we went a little over 12
My
last time.
hands were hurting by the end of the night.
Well, that's your own fault. Because you need to be one with Darkman. You need to be one with Peyton Westlake.
I'm never going to be Darkman, but I'll keep trying. It's such a hard game.
Well, those who've never joined us for a live stream, we hang out, we read the chat, we sometimes even let people call in if they want.
Yeah.
Dave plays usually retro video games.
Yep.
Lots of NES and Super Nintendo. And for donations, we let you pick what game David plays, which can be really fun.
Very entertaining and cruel. Yes.
Because some
cruel.
games are notoriously hard to play, and those are almost certainly what you'll have to play.
And if you think that you might be limited and be like, oh, well, I bet they won't have this. Well, Hen is such a sadist that he will find a way to get it, and I will have to play
We've only failed to find a few games, and the ones we failed to find, it turned out might not exist anywhere.
On that. Yeah.
So, yeah, we're pretty good at finding everything. I gotta remember to set all that up on the Friday before. But yeah, so one last time, weeklyspooky.com/live. You can go there and set a reminder so that on your YouTube account, it'll let you know when we start streaming.
Yes.
We really appreciate it. And any donations, any super chats, anything we get goes toward helping me pay off my veterinary final expenses, which I really do appreciate because there's still quite a few of them and we're a year out and it's just been a lot. So I do appreciate it, but I'd also just like people to come and hang out because it's really fun.
And I usually get a little blitzed.
And sometimes kind of testy, which is extra funny because you know me, I'm a good friend, so it's not like I needle you further once you're grouchy. No. So anyway, with that all being said, but second viewing of Companion Hard Eyes, they were 100%. Just as good. I really enjoyed them.
And also, I would like to comment that Hard Eyes is on its way to 23 million now?
Yeah, it has had a little bit of a shocking incline in viewership since obviously Valentine's Day being on a Friday. It had a giant jump on Friday, then a little bit on Saturday and a little bit on Sunday. Yeah. So it's, thank goodness, it now and this is just my opinion, it can't really be considered a flop anymore.
Which is great.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It may not be a hit, but it is not a box office disaster.
Yeah.
It had an $18 million budget, but we never know how much they spent on marketing.
Advertising.
So it's hard to know if it's like really killing it, but it's now at 23 million against 18 million, so it's at least not a massive flop, and that makes me so happy because that movie is so good, so worth your time, and so worth seeing in the theater.
Absolutely.
So I guess that's all I have to say about the BS. I don't have any hilarious anecdotes other than I'm currently living with a cat in heat.
Yes, you do.
And yes, I do.
Yes, you do. You do have a cat in heat that you're currently living with.
Yeah. I had no idea how awful it would be.
You didn't. But luckily, I'm a good friend, and I brought over today 1985's Tuff Turf.
Yeah, great friend. No, I did not dislike Tuff Turf. I mean, for all joking, I did not dislike that movie.
Yeah.
It is such it's a stack of cheese.
It's so much in one movie that you don't think would go into a single film and be cohesive.
Who said it was cohesive?
I mean, it has a middle, it has a beginning, it has an end. Kind of.
In theory. Yeah, in theory. No, I mean, I really liked it, but like, I can see why people love it, but it's also like a really weird one.
I think it's the definition of a cult classic.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
It's really far out. It's bizarre in so many ways, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But the biggest thing I have to say about it right off the bat is this movie is so deeply out of touch with its own time period. Like, I remember I kept turning and going, this is supposed to be like a bad, like, these are supposed to be tough kids. These are supposed to be kids that live in a bad area.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
It's Tuff Turf, man.
Apparently, that's why they spelled it with 2 F's.
Yeah.
You know, was so that you wouldn't.
Tuff.
No, not tough, like difficult. Tough, like a not word.
Tuff. You're so tough.
We have an 11-person R&B band with not a single black guy.
Leave Jack Mack and the Heart Attack alone.
Oh, they are not getting spared, in my opinions, of this feature film.
Speaking of this film, do you remember by chance or have the email of who suggested this to us?
I believe it was Maurice.
Was it Maurice? Okay.
But I can check if you give me 1 sec while you're running down the pertinent deets.
So Tuff Turf, 1985, 1 hour and 52 minutes, rated R for strong violence, language, some sexual content, and brief nudity. The IMDb synopsis reads as the new kid in school must battle a gang of street toughs after stealing the gang leader's girl.
That's accurate.
My synopsis says, new to Los Angeles, Morgan Hiller must face off against a gang of bullies when he sets his sights on the leader's girlfriend, Frankie.
Yeah, they're both, I would say they're both pretty good. That was pretty much a wash. They were both good.
Yeah. Moving into the taglines, Tuff Turf, where reputations are earned. Where enemies are made, reputations are earned, and love is the most risky affair of all. And then
it's long.
Meet Morgan Hiller. He's a rebel about to become a hero.
Ooh. Well, real quick.
Yes.
If Maurice recommended Tuff Turf, it wasn't via email at doyouevenmoviepod@gmail.com where we take requests. But we did get a request from this in October from Tim Smith.
Okay.
Who wrote in and gave us a list of films that he really would love us to talk about.
Yeah,
and Tuff Turf was the number 5 on it.
Yep, so, that's right.
So thank you, Tim. I
yes,
hope you're
Tim.
enjoying this episode. Sorry that Dave first, but misattributed.
My apologies. Tuff Turf is currently available on Plex, Pluto, Prime, and Tubi.
Nice.
Yeah, so it is readily available right now, and I will also mention that it does have a beautiful Blu-ray that Kino Lorber has put out, and it does include a commentary that I listened to in its entirety with the director. A lot of interesting stuff on there, which I'll bring up when we get to the trivia.
Yeah, and the Blu-ray looked phenomenal.
Yeah.
I like to tease Dave because you see, when I bought my first projector and we started screening movies on a giant screen in my living room, I would tease you if it wasn't a Blu-ray because that was a full HD. Because I spent a lot of money getting, this was, 8 years ago, getting a full HD. Because a lot of these projectors will say like 1080p, but it just means that they accept a 1080p signal, but they don't project in 1080. So I'd always be like, oh, well, if only we could really watch it, but it's DVD. Now I have a 4K system, so I'm taunting you all the time about like, why didn't you bring the 4K? Like, well, there isn't one. And I'm like, well, you could have made one. You could have gotten a hold of the rights holders, gotten a license, had the film remastered in HDR, even gathered the filmmakers together to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Packaged it and made one copy for you and I on a Tuesday night.
If only Dave's video was in production.
I still think you should start yourself a label, especially now that physical media is doing great.
Yeah.
Apparently there was almost a 30% decrease in physical media sales between 2023 and 2024.
Yeah.
So physical media is now officially not quite $1 billion industry anymore. It's a $900 some million industry.
Do you think there's anything at all that could change that, or are we kind of just on the slant at this point?
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I know that people are talking, because the crazy thing is last year everybody thought that there was going to be a big boost.
Yeah.
Because remember, last year a lot of boutique labels amped up their production.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not trying to say anything. Like, it is what it is. I love buying my movies.
Absolutely.
I love buying my boutique label 4Ks and Blu-rays that look amazing, and nobody else would ever touch them but these fine folks. But more releases in a year generally means that business is slower.
Yeah.
So they're trying to speed business up. Generally, not always.
Yeah.
But often. So that's something to keep in mind. But last year, remember, there was all that talk about streamers taking things down and things being removed. Even though there were almost no examples of people losing Movies Anywhere copies because they heard that you could, or Amazon or something.
I've heard that so many times, and every time I've gone to look at it, it's usually something in regards to a rights holder. It's not anything to do with like the property of it. Yeah.
But so my point is just that that's kind of the struggle there. But because of that, people were saying, like, I think we're going to see a resurgence in physical media because everybody's talking about how streaming is not getting it done. And then we had the biggest year-over-year drop in sales, almost 30%. So to give context, 2005 was the biggest year in physical media ever.
Yeah.
And the sales totaled $16 billion with a B. And now in 2024, I mean, it's 2025 now, but looking back at 2024, it was less than 1 billion.
Yeah.
So that's a big decrease.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Now, it doesn't mean that it's going to go away forever or that it's tumbling away entirely, but it does lend credence to the idea like these Blu-rays and especially 4Ks are going to be expensive.
Yep.
They're going to be mostly through smaller labels, and it is what it is. I'm curious how long before places like Universal and MGM and stuff just fully don't do any of their own at all and just hand everything over to like a Kino or a Shout Factory or what have you.
I feel like a big sign of the times is going to be when Walmart completely does away with it. Because it seems like they've condensed a little bit more each year. Or maybe every couple years. It might not be every year.
Well, it also entirely depends on the market you're in.
That's true, too. Yeah.
More rural areas are going to have way bigger movie sections because they don't have as strong access to high-speed internet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But and last year we lost Best Buy. Physical media at Best Buy.
Yep.
So
FYE has turned more into trend than anything. You can barely find CDs and DVDs, Blu-rays, 4Ks there now.
I had a friend complaining about that the other day.
Oh, did you?
Saying like, I can't believe that all they're selling now is this these movie tchotchkes and candy and all this stuff. Like they're not even really selling movies. They don't even seem to care. And I was like, you know what the difference is between FYE and all those movie stores that sold movies? FYE's still here.
Yeah.
It's not FYE's fault that they have to go after the dollar of the people who will shop there.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'll talk about this and people feel like, will sometimes come at me like I'm defending the concept. I'm not.
No, I get that.
It's reality.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I worked in those stores and I can tell you that we probably sold more trend items than, I mean, given we're talking like back in like 2011, 2012, and I worked at one of the biggest FYEs in Ohio, which was Kenwood at the time, which is I think now closed. It was not uncommon for us to like sell out of t-shirts quicker than we would have new releases.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, you have to think about that. You have to think about the fact that movies are becoming more digital by the minute.
Yeah.
They just are. The access to movies is unbelievable. How quickly you can get access to a film, in your home and watch it. So it's kind of like movie conventions. If you're a filmmaker at a movie convention, it's harder to sell your physical units than ever before because physical media is becoming all for the collectors. It's not mass. It's becoming less mass market every day.
Yeah.
And because of that, you're going to have less films priced for casual movie watchers because they're not interested. Casual movie watchers want to use their streaming services and they're likely paying for several already.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets really tricky and unromantic and unfortunate because we'd all like it to stay exactly the way we love.
Obviously,
but it can't.
No.
And it won't.
We've had a great run. I'm not saying that it's ending.
DVD, people don't like to admit it, but DVD had a longer and stronger run than VHS.
VHS, yeah, by far.
And DVDs, some people still buy DVDs.
Yeah, no, they absolutely do.
The other problem is license costs. Blu-rays are expensive to manufacture because of license costs, and 4Ks are incredibly expensive to manufacture because of license costs. Sometimes when you buy a 4K, literally a third of the cost could have been paying for a license to Sony.
Oh, yeah.
It is what it is. It's their technology. They patented it. So,
well, and then to go with 4K, before we get off this topic, we just, recently are finding out too now that a lot of what we thought was supposed to be region-free 4Ks are now getting locked.
They're starting to lock 4Ks, which is crazy because when they introduced 4K discs, they actually said like they have no region setting.
Yeah.
which I thought was a bizarre thing. I get that people get mad. They're like, why does Germany have this movie and we don't on Blu-ray or whatever? And like the region coding's stupid. The entire reason for region coding is very, very simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's so that smaller countries can afford to license those films for their people.
Yeah.
That's all it is. The reason there's a Dawn of the Dead box set in the United Kingdom, which I own, the reason there is one is because the rights are cheaper and more accessible in overseas than they are in America.
Yeah.
So that's that. And as region coding dies, it's another death knell for physical media.
Yeah.
Because why license a movie that to a country that only has 5 million people in it if those copies are just going to end up disseminated in America or your biggest markets and whatever? So it's usually in the contract, like this needs to be region locked. And I'm guessing that they introduced region locking to 4K discs because rights holders wanted that protection.
Yeah.
Because for a while it was and there are only been a few reported to have region locking, but like it was the Wild West. I'd be like, oh man, I want a 4K of Dawn of the Dead. I'll just buy the UK one. Oh man, I want a 4K of this. I'll just buy it from Australia.
Walter Hill's movie The Driver is currently available on 4K, and otherwise you're going to have to pay like out the ass for like the Twilight Time title.
Yeah.
But it's like $45 for a 4K and I can watch it. And I mean, that movie's difficult to find.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
and 4K is a great format. I mean, it looks great. It sounds great. So it's tough because I think that the cost for the consumers is heading way up. I think we're going to end up in the $50 to $60 range.
I mean, we're kind of already there on some of them.
On some of them, yeah. But I mean, like, I think that's going to be the rule, not the exception.
Yeah.
Right now, it's like the rule is like $27 to $30.
Yeah.
And then, of course, big label movies will be released a bit cheaper and go on sale a lot more. But that's also worrisome because if the big studios have to keep discounting their titles just to move them, how long before they're like, why are we putting these 4Ks out? I mean, Blumhouse put a bunch of titles out. The Hunt is coming out on 4K through Shout Factory. They did Happy Death Day 1 and 2.
Yeah.
They've done a few others. They have a deal with Universal.
Yeah.
But they're doing their physical media through Shout Factory.
But I mean, at the same time, too, it's getting to that point where you are seeing less of the studios having their 4Ks, passing them off to somebody else. So at least if those boutique labels are still around, if people keep buying them, we're still going to get those for whoever knows how long. So, I mean, the main message, I think, in all of this is if you're a movie fan, which I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, obviously you are.
Yeah.
Physical media right now is probably at a height for a lot of stuff that has not either been available in a certain extent or is going to be available only for a short period.
Just because now is one of the worst times for physical media of all time does not mean that now is one of the worst times for physical media collectors.
Exactly.
Those are not the same thing.
Yeah.
And one thing that'll hopefully occur is as time goes on, these studios will start to realize like, okay, there's not quite as much money to be made in physical media. I need to be a little bit more kind and open-minded about how much I want as a license to put them out on physical media so that I can avoid the pain in the butt of manufacturing the physical media, authoring the physical media. I'm going to pawn that off on Kino Lorber. I'm going to pawn that off on Vinegar Syndrome. I'm going to pawn that off on all these other labels.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised I wouldn't be shocked if we even saw another label or two pop up if that keeps happening.
If that happens, yeah.
Honestly, if I were them, if I were the major studios, I would go in on a physical media label together.
That'd be a genius point.
I would, if I was like Universal Studios or whatever, I'd be like, what if we found a label that's 50% owned by Sony or 40%, and then we split the rest between like Universal, Disney, and we make it a consortium so that the prices could go lower. Now, a lot of people might say, well, that would be a nightmare. In a way, but they've also co-owned streaming services before.
Yeah.
Hulu and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of what I would immediately think because it's like you have the licenses and they'd be cheap if you were sharing in the profits.
And that would be the way to go with it.
Maybe. I don't know. I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not directly in the boutique business other than as a collector, and very occasionally do I work in the business of boutiques.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, I do think it's the best time to be the collector.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many films that have hit Blu-ray and 4K that I never would have imagined would be available. And now I get to watch them in super high quality. I just got a 4K of Collateral a film that half of it was shot in HD.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious how it's going to look.
Hey, I just got a Blu-ray of The Seventh Curse from Vinegar Syndrome, and that movie is fucking insane.
Look at you. No, and that's the thing. Yeah. So anyway, I didn't mean to go on a tirade, but it's like people are fast, especially because they love this stuff.
Yeah.
They're fast to fear. It's like when that article went viral about Sony shutting down Blu-ray manufacturing.
Blu-ray R's.
But everybody, it was recordable Blu-ray media. Everybody thought that it meant that Blu-rays were no longer going to exist.
Yeah.
But I can tell you as a person who has bought literally tens of thousands of physical discs to burn.
Yeah.
We never buy them from Sony. They're too expensive.
Yeah.
We buy them mostly from, I'm pretty sure there's one factory in Taiwan that makes all of the cheap ones. And then they're labeled under like 5 or 6 different names.
Makes sense.
And that's where we get our cheap physical media.
Yeah.
So when it comes to manufacturing Blu-rays that are going to go in a store, that's a whole other world.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other thing. I don't have a lot of insight into that. And rightfully so. Glad I don't.
Point being, if you are a physical media collector, now is the time. So if there are titles that you are seeing that you want to own, grab them up while you can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like, I don't think the sky is falling.
No.
But the sky's going to be different.
Sky's going to be different. And also the sky is bloodletting right now. A lot of great deals.
Yeah, no, there've been stupid deals.
Yeah.
It's been dangerous because I got a little bit of money. I finally bought my first region-free 4K player.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gone nuts buying buying overseas stuff, but I have bought a few.
Oh, the reason that I don't buy region free player is because I know that there's no holding me back. Because I have a list still to this day of stuff that I want that is region B and D and.
But you want to know what was so sweet about it was watching that Terminator 2 in 3D from the UK that I bought, not even ever hoping to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I bought it because it was $13.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, my Terminator 2 collection could have the 3D blue from overseas.
There
and
you
then
go.
one day I bought this player and I was like, wait, it's 3D capable and plays all region. Da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Off to the races
Wow, that was a long thing just to say that, so physical media lovers, fellow physical media lovers, don't panic.
No.
But understand that the landscape's going to change.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, there's a lot of headway being made in made on demand product. And I know some people hate made on demand product, and it is a different quality.
It's a different quality, but I mean, like that If Looks Could Kill from Warner Brothers that I got the Warner Archive DVD looked fine. Like, I mean, it looked pretty good.
Well, there's a company called Allied Vaughn, and they are the biggest. They are probably who's going to pick up a lot of the slack, although they don't do, as far as I know, 4Ks yet. But they literally are a giant manufacturer.
Yeah.
And when you order a movie that's burned on demand from Amazon, Target, Walmart, wherever, it goes straight to their hubs. Mm-hmm. They have a few hubs all over the country. They make the disc, they burn the disc, they print the disc, they print the sleeve, they insert it, they package it, and they mail it to you ASAP.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. That's all they do. That's all they do. But no, that's all they do. So, I mean, that's going to be where, especially the smaller titles from the bigger companies, that's where they're headed.
Yeah.
They're headed there unless they get picked up by a boutique.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, if you want to keep your ear to the ground, Dawn of the Disc on Facebook's a great one to follow.
Just don't read the comments.
No. Blu-ray.com, if you go to the top of their page, they always have the deals that are going on between Amazon and all these other places, including streaming too. So, I mean, you have a lot of ways to get your finger on the pulse for physical media right now.
Yes. So I know I've been in this business so long at this point, and it's been my key source of income for over 10 years.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sound negative. I'm just talking about what's happening. Yeah. It's like my buddy, he's a acquaintance, Justin Robert Young. He has a show called Politics. And whenever people write him in to get mad, he's like, you realize I'm just telling you what happened. I'm not telling you what should happen or what I think should be happening. I'm just telling you what happened.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel when I talk about the film business, is like, I'm telling you what has happened and what might happen, not what I want to happen.
No, and I mean, we're physical media collectors ourselves, as we've said numerous times. So, I mean, the last thing we want to read is that physical media is dying. But, I mean, you can't ignore that things have been happening lately that have looked like, not the end is coming, but we have had a decrease.
Well,
plain and simple.
And there's other things that are worrisome, too. Like when I was buying my region-free 4K player, most of the 4K players on the market are like 6 or 7 years old. They're not making new ones.
No, they're not.
That worries me a little bit. I mean, granted, there's the PlayStation 5 and there's the whatever.
Yeah.
But still, they're not making them.
Well,
And their prices aren't going down either.
They're
still
also making
$200.
game systems without disk drives now entirely, too.
Yeah, they're still making it an option,
Yeah.
obviously. But yeah, and that's another thing worth mentioning is like when I bought my player, I think it's a great player, one of the best that was made at the time, but like I can tell how old it is by looking at it.
Yeah.
So, and it's a Sony. It's not like it's an off label.
No,
or something,
it's not an
there aren't
off-brand.
even any off-brand 4K
No.
players. And maybe that would be nice if maybe that patent could either get cheaper or something. It would be nice to see, those cheapy. It'd be nice to see Apex make a comeback.
Yeah.
The place that made my first $30 DVD player.
Kobe.
Yeah, there we go. Anyway, my God, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
I just had to talk about that for my entire
So,
life.
back
Basically.
to Tuff Turf. Our director on the film is Fritz Kiersch. He gets his start in 1984 directing Children of the Corn. Out of the gate.
Never heard of it.
So that's his first. That's his first feature. He also did a lot of commercial stuff before that because, like I said, I listened to his commentary, and he did a lot of Primo commercials before that. So he does Children of the Corn in 84. The next year does Tuff Turf in 85, followed by Winner Takes All, Gore in 87.
Oh, the film about future Vice President Al Gore.
A really, really bad canon swords and sandals sci-fi movie. It's not good.
What? A canon movie that's not good?
Yeah.
I don't buy it.
Under the Boardwalk in 1988, Fatal Charm in 1990, Swamp Thing TV series in 1990, Into the Sun, Shattered Image in 94, The Stranger in 95, High Tide, Crayola Kids Adventures, Tales of Gulliver's Travel in
Now
97.
that's my favorite.
Surveillance in 2006, and The Hunt in 2006 as well.
The Hunt. The one that I kept seeing when I was trying to find out what was happening with the new one.
Yep.
When it got pushed back on
God,
release.
that was the dark times.
Well, that was before the COVID release.
Yeah, I know.
Too.
Yeah. Writer, we have 3 writers on the film, starting with Jet Rennick. He gets his start with 1985's Tuff Turf. Our other writer on the film is Greg Collins O'Neill. He does Tuff Turf in 1985, Wordplay in 87, The Sleeping Car in 1990, Zorro series in 1990, and Pacific Blue, the Bicycle Cop TV series that USA used to play.
Oh my God.
Did I take you back?
Yes. I used to sit through Pacific Blue so bored.
Yep.
Waiting for Silk Stockings.
I would wait for Walker, Texas Ranger reruns.
Right.
And some other stuff. Yeah.
Oh, and then Silk Stockings.
And some other stuff, yeah.
Listen, kids. Silk Stockings, man. That show does not get the love it deserves.
It does not. Last writer on the film is Murray Michaels. He gets his start and his only credit with Tuff Turf in 1985. So 3 writers that this is all really they did.
Wow.
Yeah. Cinematographer on the film, Willie Current. He gets his start in 1966 as director of photography on The Creatures, followed by Anna in 67, The Departure in 67, The Immortal Story in 68, Night of the Following Day, which is a big one in 69 because that's Brando, Man on Horseback in 69, Mafia Wants Blood in 1970, Pink Floyd Live at Pompeii in 72. Then in 77, he shoots a little film called The Incredible Melting Man. Yes.
Not only do I love that movie, I just got that.
You just
4K.
got that 4K. Follows that up with Harper Valley PTA in 78, ABC After School Specials in 79, Running Scared in 1980, Mama Dracula in 1980, The Killing of America in 1981. Homicide. Tag, The Assassination Game in 82, Equator in 83, then shoots Tuff Turf in 85, followed by A State of Emergency in 85, Trade Secrets in 86, Under the Son of Satan in 87. Milan Noir in 88, Kitchen with an Apartment in 93, China Moon in 94, A Business Affair in 94, The Babysitter's Club movie in 95, White Man's Bird in 95, The Little Riders, The New Swiss Family Robinson, Delivering Milo, Pootie Tang in 200001.
I love Pootie Tang.
Pootie Tang is
like
fantastic.
Pootie Tang,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And
I don't care what anybody says.
a burning hot summer in 2011.
Oh, okay.
We unfortunately lost him in 2021, May 1st at age 87. No cause of death given, but I'm guessing probably old age.
Yeah, old age or something along those lines. Wow.
Moving down to our cast, we have James Spader in the film who plays Morgan Hiller. He gets
And
a start.
He sure does.
Yes, he does.
James Spader's this movie beautifully. I mean that with love. He's
Yeah.
an amazing actor. I mean, there's no denying that.
So Teammates in 78 is his start. He goes on to do Endless Love in 81, The Family Tree in 83, A Killer in the Family in 83, followed by Tuff Turf, which is his first starring role in 85, The New Kids in 85, Starcross in 85, Pretty in Pink in 87, Mannequin in 87, Baby Boom in 87.
I forgot he was in Mannequin. I love Mannequin.
Less Than Zero in 87, Wall Street in 87, Jack's Back in 88, Sex, Lies, and Videotape in 89, which I just revisited. Have you seen it in a while?
Not since I was in high school.
Dude, go back and watch it. Soderbergh's first movie, of course.
Right.
Perfect movie. Perfect movie. Criterion put out an edition of it, which I watched a DVD of it when I watched it this past week, but fantastic film. Cannot recommend Sex Life Videotape.
I have to revisit that.
Yeah, Bad Influence in 1990, another one I'll recommend. White Palace in 1990, True Colors in 91, Bob Roberts in 92, Dream Lover in 93, and I'm going to take a second to tell you about Dream Lovers.
Oh, yeah?
I just watched Dream Lover a couple weeks ago with our good friend Celise, who is Sweet and Spooky on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Follow her channel. She's awesome. And we watched it, and it is an erotic thriller from 93 where James Spader finds the woman of his dreams. She comes into his life. This movie is really, really odd. Has some top-tier Larry Miller, but she comes into his life. And he is swooned by her. They get married. They have kids. All this happens in the first 40 minutes.
Oh, boy.
And then the movie reveals, spoilers, that she has basically been building a case against him this entire time because she has mysterious bruises that appear, and she's just like, oh, I just have this condition.
Oh, she's building a case to ruin his life.
Ruin his life.
Was he rich?
Yeah, he works for a firm.
Oh, okay, so she's trying to get something.
Yeah.
What is she trying to get, just money? Or?
Basically money. So he finds out that everything that she was told him was a complete lie. So then he goes to see her family in this town, and a bunch of weird stuff happens. But the reason I'm telling you about this movie is, A, I wasn't a big fan of it, but B, I'm going to spoil this ending because this ending is the only reason that if you are curious about this movie to watch it.
Oh,
she
boy.
eventually gets him institutionalized.
Oh.
So he gets sent away.
And all he wanted was a Pepsi.
And all he wanted was a Pepsi. He gets institutionalized, and the movie ends with her going to visit him on his birthday. So he is having his birthday. He convinces one of his fellow patients to distract the guards, and then him and the wife go on a walk. And he's like, guess what? There's one fatal flaw to your plan. And she's like, what's that? And he goes, I'm crazy. Strangles her dead. And that's the end of the movie.
What's that movie called again?
Dream Lover.
That's a brilliant ending, though. I really like that ending.
like the ending, but like the rest of the movie is not great.
Yeah, but that's a great ending, though.
Yeah.
Like he just turns it on her
Yeah.
like, oh, well, since I'm insane, I'll just murder you.
I'll just murder you.
Nobody, they already think I'm insane, so.
So Dream Lover from 1993, if you're going to watch it, I unfortunately watched the R-rated cut, which has the sex scenes trimmed down because there's an unrated.
Yeah.
But that is a movie that I don't recommend except for the ending.
Well, I mean, goddamn, no, it's a hell of an ending, though. That's great. I love that twist.
Moving on to a movie I do recommend, Wolf from 1994. Him and Jack Nicholson in that movie, phenomenal.
Oh my God, that movie's everything about that movie is a joy.
Stargate in 94, Crash in 96, 2 Days in the Valley in 96, Critical Care in 97, The Water in 2000, Secretary 2002,
All right.
The Stick Up in 2002, Alien Hunter, Boston Legal, The Office, Lincoln, The Homesman, then does Avengers Age of Ultron in 2015, and of course, was on the Blacklist recently as well, which completed a couple of years ago, I want to say.
Yeah, I mean, he became a go-to for what I would call like big, like network, high prestige television.
Yeah. No, he is definitely one of those names that, like, the name, but it's funny when you look at his film career. He did a good amount, but not as much as you would think, because he only has like 55 credits on IMDb.
Wow.
So moving down to our other actress, we have Kim Richards, who plays Frankie Croydon in the film. She gets her start in 1971's The Strange Monster of Strawberry Cove, The Nanny and the Professor, The FBI, Picture of Dorian Gray in 73, Emergency, Little House on the Prairie, Escape from Witch Mountain, which is one of her big claims, Special Delivery, Assault on Precinct 13. She's the little girl.
Oh, no way.
Mm-hmm. I wanted, was it Vanilla?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Oh my.
That's her.
I love that.
Then moving on to the Rockford Files in 76, Raid on Entanabe, The Car in 77, Police Story in 77, Devil Dog, Hound of Hell, Different Strokes, Alice, The Love Boat, Dukes of Hazzard, Meatballs Part 2, Tuff Turf in 85, Escape, Black Snake Moan in 2006, Race to Witch Mountain in 2009, Revenge TV series, Sharknado 3, Oh Hell No in 2015.
Now we're talking about a motion picture.
And people may also know that she is Paris Hilton's aunt, so she appeared on The Simple Life as herself in 2004 and Real Housewives of Beverly Hills in 2010.
Well, hell.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And if I remember correctly, no shade to her, I believe she had a mental breakdown on Real Housewives.
Shocking.
Yeah.
That never happened.
And wrapping up our cast, Mr. Robert Downey Jr., who plays Jimmy Parker in the film.
Who I was very surprised to see.
Yeah. I did not know. He got his start in 1970 in Pound. I did not know he was in Pound, his father's movie.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
No, the Sheens and Estevezes, they always like to work with their family.
Yeah.
I mean, they've always been very supportive of each other and all that. The Estevezes and Sheens are all from Dayton, Ohio, where we're sitting right now. So, And the Estevezes that are still here, really nice people, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, like, really, really nice people.
Baby It's You in 1983, Firstborn in 84, then does Tuff Turf in 85, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Weird Science, SNL in 85, The Weird Years.
Yeah.
Back to School in 86, Less Than Zero in 87, Johnny Be Good, True Believer, Air America, Soap Dish in 91.
I love Air America.
I love Soap Dish
so much. I've never seen Soap Dish.
Oh, Soap Dish is great.
Oh.
It's a soap opera that goes like wrong.
Maybe I don't know.
You probably had. It was a cable player back in the day.
Yeah, 'cause I visited Air America like 2 years ago, and I loved it.
Chaplin in 92, Heart and Souls in 93, Natural Born Killers in 94, Richard III in 95, Home for the Holidays in 95.
One of my favorite performances by him, although
fall into his eyes if you look too hard.
Yeah, well, not just because he's beautiful, but because his pupils are so dilated that they legally could be hubcaps.
That is famously the film that Jodie Foster wrote to him afterwards and told him, "You need to clean up your act or you're going to die."
Yeah. No, well, Jodie Foster has stood up for people who really needed an advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the two most incredible, not just famous, but incredible examples were Downey and Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson, yeah.
Mel Gibson, one of those moments that like got me in the feels was, I think it was she won an award, I think, for The Beaver.
The Beaver, yeah.
I forget what it was. It might have been Golden Globe. Or it was something. It was a SAG award or something. I can't remember. But she won an award for The Beaver, which is one of my favorite movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Ever. And
literally watched it for the first time ever in this room. I borrowed your copy when I was staying with you when Whiting was still living here.
That.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That movie's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, so she's thanking everybody, and one of the things, and this is after the tape, the recordings of him yelling on the phone, which he was I am not justifying Mel Gibson's terrible things.
Yeah.
But as a person who has had his own mental health issues, not as severe as Mel, Mel Gibson had a horrible father who was a drunk, bigot, terrible person. And if you read about Mel Gibson's father and then you see how he was talking when he was wasted and drunk and angry, he sounds like his father.
Yeah.
And my heart goes out to somebody who, remember, didn't take much for him to move across the entire planet from Australia to America and get away from all that stuff. So it breaks my heart to think that he's sounding like his father, that he's being his father. And I think that happens to a lot of people who are alcoholics, that they become who they're trying to escape.
Yeah.
But so after all that happens, the Beaver comes out, and when she gets the award, she says, "And I want to thank Mel." And she says, "Mel, I'll never give up on you."
I do remember that.
And that actually softened me to Mel Gibson a bit too, because it made me realize that the people closest to him knew that he was struggling and that he had serious problems.
Yeah.
And that he needed help.
Yeah.
So that is what I got.
That's fair. So Home for the Holidays in 95, U.S. Marshals in 98, In Dreams, Bowfinger, Wonder Boys, Ally McBeal in 2000, The Singing Detective, Gothica in 2003, which I want to give a shout out to Gothica. That is a movie that does not get its due.
I've never seen Gothica.
Gothica is Halle Berry's Dark Castle. Yeah, Dark Castle
Yeah, I
Entertainment.
remember that. Yeah.
It's really, really good ghost story that has a lot of layers to it that it kind of got brushed under, I think, because it was just one of the lesser ones.
Yeah, I mean, I remember people talking about it when it happened,
Yeah.
but I think also it had the calling it Gothica had a bit of a hello fellow kids mentality to it that a lot of people it rubbed them the wrong way right away.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang in 2005, Good Night Good Luck in 2005, Scanner Darkly in 2006, Zodiac, and then Iron Man in 2008, and the rest is history from there.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that Downey has cleaned up his act because he's a phenomenal actor.
He is.
Phenomenal talent, phenomenal personality.
One of my favorite roles of his, even though it's like really minor, is Chef.
Oh, he's
his
amazing
appearance
in
in Chef is so good.
Everybody is so good in Chef.
Yeah,
Chef is
fantastic.
just such a great experience in every way. One of the very few films that's kind of about nothing as far as plot goes. That is a joy, and you get something when it's over, and you're happy. And
if you haven't seen Chef, cannot recommend that movie enough, and it'll probably come to the show at some point, I imagine.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth talking about. But my only problem, and I mentioned this when we were watching the film, my only problem with Downey in this movie is seeing him young makes me uncomfortable.
I know.
Because it's like I'm transported to a time when I literally wondered if he was going to die.
Yeah.
Because he was so clearly off the rails.
Yeah.
Doing pills and drugs and stuff. Pills and drugs.
Yeah.
Not just pills, not just drugs. Pills.
Both.
Pills as well as drugs. But so I'm so happy that he had a happy ending. But sometimes when I watch him in those movies, I'll be like, my God, I can tell how loaded he is. I can really tell, and it's scary, even though he turned it around.
Yeah. So my first time watching Tuff Turf, because this was your first time tonight, I got this movie brought to my attention because I was at FYE one day when I had moved back to Troy, and I was shopping around, and I came across a 8-film pack that I'd seen advertised on Amazon from Mill Creek that was 80s Guilty Pleasures.
Oh, that's what they titled it?
Yeah, 80s
Nice.
Guilty Pleasures. And this included Soul Man, Girls Just Want to Have Fun, Angel, Tuff Turf, Fraternity Vacation, Black Moon Rising, Night Patrol, and Reformed Schoolgirls.
Most of those are bangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had never heard of Tuff Turf. I solely got it because I was a big fan of Night Patrol, and I think I also got it for Soul Man. I think that was the two that I was hunting after at that point.
C. Thomas Howell in blackface.
It's a thing. It's a thing, and it exists.
It happened. It's not a bad movie, but
not.
I mean, don't get me wrong. It's the thing.
Didn't age the best.
Well, no. The problem with Soul Man, the real problem with Soul Man is that some people want to believe that somehow that was not off color when they did it.
Yeah, it was 100%.
The whole point was that it was not okay for him to be in blackface.
Yeah.
C. Thomas Howell was not pretending to literally be a black character. He was playing a white character pretending to be a black character.
So he could get into the school.
Yeah. So it's not, and don't get me, I'm not saying that it's a great thing. I don't think we should make it today. But,
I mean, it's still, I'm going to say this, it's still readily available on Vudu. You can get it today.
Yeah. But it just drives me crazy when people kind of go like, that wouldn't fly today. I'm like, people were offended then. That was the point.
Yeah.
It wasn't a movie about how great it is to wear blackface.
Yeah.
That was never the point.
Oh, if you want to hear something hilarious about that movie, Radon Chong and Bernie Casey have both done interviews on it.
I would love to hear those.
Yeah, I found them on YouTube a while back, and I think there was also a documentary on the disc that they were on. But yeah, so I got that collection, and I genuinely had no idea. Like, I'd seen Angel, I'd seen Night Patrol, and I'd seen Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Right.
Knew about a few of the other movies, never heard of Tuff Turf. And eventually got to Tuff Turf because I think it shared the same disc with Soul Man, if I'm not mistaken.
Nice.
So, I got to Tuff Turf, and my world just changed. I was blown away by how dumb, how fun the movie was, the tonal shift, and just genuinely the huge jump between music numbers, violent attacks, and teen romance.
Yeah.
Like, it's out of its fucking mind.
No, it's completely disjointed.
Yeah.
It's clear that there was a lot of meddling behind the scenes. It's really interesting. On the commentary, did the director mention like he went straight from Children of the Corn to that?
Yeah.
Did they not know Children of the Corn was a hit yet?
I think he had mentioned that they had just basically locked it down and they didn't know the success of it yet.
Yeah, because it seems like if Children of the Corn had come out, which would have been one of the few New World successes post Roger Corman, they would have been like, you do whatever you want with this movie, you're a god. And that was the funny thing when we started the film, literally started the film, and you're like, it's a pretty ridiculous movie, it's, blah, 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 blah. And then the New World logo came out and went, oh, yeah, they'd throw money at anything.
Yes, they would.
Now, and again, that doesn't mean that they didn't make a lot of fun movies that would have never gotten the kinds of budgets they deserved. But most of them flopped. There's a reason that company is long gone.
Yeah.
For every Hellraiser, for every I'm trying to think of another big hit they had. They had a few. They had a few big hits. Creepshow.
Creepshow 2.
Well, that's not it, but it was a modern hit.
Shit.
But for every one of those that were like where they threw money into something that turned out really great, Children of the Corn is one I was trying to think of, which we just talked about.
Yeah.
For every one of those, they had like 15 movies where you were like, why is this so weird and expensive?
Yeah. And I mean, New World Pictures is just that sign of quality that when it pops up, you're either in for a dog or a ride.
Well, you're in for a nostalgia hit.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's for damn sure.
And I love them. And I found my love for most of the New World Pictures stuff from the 80s thanks to the Anchor Bay DVD double features that they were cranking out there for a while.
Well, and I mean, so Tuff Turf was on Anchor Bay, so was Reformed Schoolgirls, so was Night Patrol, so was Soul Man. All those titles on that Mill Creek pack were Anchor Bay titles.
I mean, they were kind of the home for all of those New World films that weren't the big hits for quite a while.
Well, I mean, hell, they repackaged Hell Comes to Frogtown and DEF CON together, DEF CON 4.
Yeah, Hell Comes to Frogtown is a phenomenal example of how insane the management at New World Pictures was.
That is very true.
I love that movie, but it is not just bonkers.
Yeah. They tried to be serious with a premise that doesn't sound serious at all.
But that's because the director, whose name escapes me right now, is wild and crazy.
Yeah.
Like, perverse is the best way to describe it. It's just, the reason that movie is so fun is because there's no wink.
No.
There's no like, haha, isn't this ridiculous?
Donald G. Jackson.
Donald G. Jackson. And I know you're about to start Fred Olin Ray's autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
He has a whole bunch of stories. They were buddies.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah,
Oh,
including a time that he loaned his son Chris to him to like film scenes for a new movie. And then the police got called because he was filming without a permit.
Yeah.
And he tried to be mad at Fred. Like, well, your son was making too much noise. And he was like, I'm just taking my son back. And now I'm mad at you. Like, I was letting you film with my son just to be nice.
Cannot wait to read this book.
It's a great book. It's
Hellbent for Hollywood.
Hellbent for Hollywood. Highly recommended.
Yeah.
It's a great read. But anyway.
So yeah, getting into Tuff Turf. So we open the movie. We're seeing James Spader riding his bike through the streets of LA. We're seeing street lights. We're seeing neon lights. Oh.
No.
Oh.
We see James Spader riding his bicycle.
Oh, his bicycle, yes.
You made it sound like the movie I was expecting when I heard the term Tuff Turf. One of the reasons I never got around to watching it was I thought it was yet another one of those kind of post-Warriors kind of things.
It was supposed to be a remake of Rebel Without a Cause, originally, is what the idea was supposed to be.
But then they were like, that was good. Let's not do that. It's not a bad movie, but it's a fever dream.
It's a fever dream.
Yeah.
So he's riding his bike through the streets of LA. We're seeing street lights. We're seeing neon lights. We're seeing cars pass him. And we eventually meet Nick and his gang and his girlfriend, Frankie. And they're setting up a guy who comes out of a store and waits at a bus stop.
Makes no sense. This guy is wearing a suit and tie.
Yes.
And the young woman is standing on the corner. She makes sense. She looks like she's waiting for a bus or waiting for like a boyfriend to pick her up or something. But this guy walks out of a store in the middle of the rough part of town.
Yeah, there's a newsstand. They're like the kids are reading pornos.
Yeah, they're just checking out porno mags. But he's just standing there smoking a cigarette, and all I could think was like, why are you standing? Like, don't you've got to have a car, right? You like, what are you doing here? And this scene is just ridiculous. They get ready to mug him.
Yeah, he's clearly a mark. So Frankie walks over to him and has a 5 or what looks like a 1 in the movie.
It does, yeah.
And she's like, do you have change for a 5? He goes in to get the money, and she signals to Nick, and they start crossing the street. One guy breaks an antenna off a car. One guy grabs his spray paint, and then of course Nick breaks out a razor and throws the guy up against the wall. He's like, money's in my left pocket. And right as this is happening, James Spader as Morgan rides on his bike, grabs a beer can from one of the gang members, sprays them with it to where one of the gang members sprays Nick in the face with spray paint, and then they also free the guy. The dude with the antenna goes to swipe at Morgan and cuts his jacket and rides off. And that's Morgan Hiller's introduction.
Yeah, but the thing, they established that these guys are like very dangerous ruffians.
Oh, yeah.
But then they're just pains in the asses until like the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
They're mostly just like dickheads. I assumed that where we were going, and this is especially based on movies of that time period, that like we'd find out that these kids deal drugs, we'd find out that they're loaning money or something, or running illegal gambling.
There's like no drug use in the movie at all, honestly.
No, they're just pricks.
Yeah,
they're
just pricks.
little shitheads.
Yeah. So he catches Frankie's attention, and we just kind of see Frankie being like, "Oh, okay." So then we go to see Morgan's home life the next day, because we find out that later on that his family has moved from Connecticut. They used to be a well-to-do family. His dad owned a business. The business collapsed. So they decided to take everything from Connecticut and move to LA.
Which made me laugh out loud. It's like, things are too expensive in Connecticut. What's the vaguely less expensive place? Oh, the ghetto in California. Like, although I'll give credit, later on they reveal that the dad is driving a taxi cab to support the family while he gets his real estate license in California.
He does.
And I will say, especially in the 80s, selling real estate in California is a lot of opportunity as opposed to like Connecticut, where it's a little bit smaller, it's a little bit tighter knit, and it is expensive, especially if you're used to a certain degree of living. I spent almost every year growing up, I'd spend at least a weekend or a week in Connecticut with my grandparents because they lived in there, out there, and it was fancy.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when they decided to leave Connecticut and move to Hamilton, Ohio, because they'd been there for a few years. My dad was actually born down there, because my grandpa was in the Navy, and so they moved all the time. And they had literally said, like, we just don't like the people on the East Coast. You know, we're going to go back to Hamilton. We have family out there. You know, we'll just kind of live out there. And then I remember them talking about how amped they were because when they sold their house in Connecticut, they got like this stack of money, and then they found the perfect house in Hamilton, and they were like, oh, cool. That's like, that house barely cost the profit we made off of selling the house that wasn't paid off yet.
Oh my God.
Because it was immensely cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're talking 2004, 2003. So like Ohio, it was crazy cheap. It's still very cheap, but it was crazy cheap back then. So they bought this big house, 1 story, because they were getting older. And, but yeah, I remember them leaving, but I remember asking my grandpa, who was a very wise man. And he had a wonderful name too. Enrique Couto.
Look at that.
Was my grandpa's name too. But I remember asking him, like, why'd you guys leave Connecticut? Because I thought Connecticut, I mean, I grew up in Ohio. I thought Connecticut was beautiful. I loved the drives out there.
Yeah.
And he just flat out, he was like, nobody's grateful in Connecticut.
And all the damn vampires.
That would, I mean, I'm sure considering how sparse his naval record is, he probably did fight vampires for the U.S. government. They just spoke German, apparently.
That's fair.
Yeah. So, but no, it was just, I just remember him saying, like, you know, when he literally was like, in Hamilton, if I go to McDonald's, people like care to hand me my hamburger.
Yeah.
And he was like, in Connecticut, people are just like,
oh.
So, which I just found really interesting, a really interesting observation that he was like, people just they don't appreciate anything out there anymore.
That is an interesting
Well,
one.
he also lived in a pretty nice part of Connecticut.
Yeah.
I don't know all the details of how they even afforded it, to be honest. That could also fall into, like, you know, killing vampires.
It
So
could
whatever.
be, yes. So we see Morgan's new home, and the way they establish that it's not a nice place is there's roaches in the room, crawling all over his stuff that hasn't been unpacked yet. He's got an Albert Einstein poster that has roaches crawling on it.
So, number one, it's the only time we see roaches.
Yeah.
So they just crammed them into this one scene, but
Or they came with the moving supplies.
that's what I thought. I thought
Yeah.
they were trying to say that, like, his stuff was dirty.
Yeah.
But you saying that, I'm like, oh, that was what they were trying to establish, was that they lived in a rough area. Their house was huge.
It was huge.
They lived in a neighborhood. They didn't live in an apartment building. All I'm saying is, to have cockroaches just crawling on the middle of your walls, not even congregating where there's food, you would have to have, like, the worst infestation ever. You've never dealt with roaches, right?
Not to that level, not to the size of them. I've had roaches. Like we had a couple at college, but like nothing major.
Oh yeah, that's gonna happen at college.
Yeah.
See, something that a lot of people don't want to talk about. I lived in Jersey for 3 years, and because not just for me, because I didn't have roaches where I lived, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But I had so many friends that lived in the coasts, and they would say, like, when you're living in these giant apartment complexes in New York City and Jersey City and in Philly, you just have roaches.
Yeah.
Like, and there's no option. Like, they'll fumigate so that their numbers are low. But, like, I had friends who, I almost said their names, but I don't know if they'd want that. I had friends who literally, like, I'd come over to the house, I'd be like, oh, cool, you have one of those, like, little Tupperware things to keep your cereal fresh.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh, I would never leave any food in any way out in the open, because then I'll definitely have tons of roaches.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I remember when bed bugs hit, it was miserable out there, because it was like, you're just going to get them.
You're going to get them. Yeah.
So, so my point is, many times in this film, I was like, oh, this is supposed to be where poor people live. Oh, these are supposed to be poor people. This is supposed to be the rough part of town.
It's not.
It was such a, like, out of touch concept.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like some of the really fun gang kid movies of the day where, like, it was kind of, you know, futuristic or it was kind of abstract. No, it just was not. It was just out of touch.
It's just wrong.
Just completely out of touch.
Well, the best thing then, though, is he's watching the roaches crawl on this poster, and then he takes 2 dart guns, kills them both. Now, the reason I bring this up is because on the commentary, this scene was added because towards the end, when he actually brings the guns out, they wanted to establish that they were non-lethal weapons.
So originally, he just had dart guns.
He just
with
had
no
dart
establishing
guns, no
point.
establishing.
And these aren't dart guns, for the record. These are not dart guns like I had a dart gun when I was a kid. These are like, they look like tranquilizer darts. They're like, they have pointy pieces and little, like, the little fur on the end and the feather on the end.
Because you think they're like paintball at first.
Yeah, or pellets or something. But no, they're like, where would you even get that?
Connecticut.
Apparently. Yeah.
So we see Morgan leaves and he goes off to school riding his bike. He says bye to his dad as he's getting in his taxi. And that's when we get the Tuff Turf theme song. As he rides to school and we're riding along with him, we get to school, we see the kids, we see everybody listening to boom boxes, acting a fool, tagging spots and everything. And we also see that the bullies are now at the school as well.
Yes.
But they're not attending school.
No, they're just hanging out there, I guess, to meet up because that's where they're supposed to go.
Yeah.
And then they're probably going to cut class or what have you.
So we see Morgan, who talks to one of the security guards at the school because he wants him to go park his bike, which is, I can't remember the actor's name, but he's the guy in Die Hard 2
He's
and
been
Fright
in
Night.
a ton of movies.
Yeah.
And one thing I liked about this is it tells you a bit about Spader's character, which is, in my opinion, that he has more of like a healthy distrust of authority as opposed to just an out and out.
Because he jokes with him.
Yeah, he kind of laughs about it because he's like, hey, you don't ride the bike once you're in the actual area.
I just wanted to cruise through history.
Yeah. And he's like, you take it over there. And then he's like, lock your bike over there and you get it at the end of the day. And he starts riding over. He's like, hey, walk your bike.
Yeah.
Like, and then he just looks at me and goes, you ever shoot that thing?
Yeah,
Shoot anybody with that thing? And I just like that because like I said, it didn't come off like he was a delinquent.
Yeah.
But he's definitely a smart ass. He
Oh,
definitely questions things.
And he's got his leather jacket. He's got his shades.
Which don't make him look cool in the 80s.
Not really.
Although nobody else looked much cooler, so let's not pretend.
But Nick and his bullies see the Spader going into school, and they're like, I guess we're going to school today. Which we never see them in school, for that matter.
No. School is a very minor character in this film.
And we also find out that Spader's been kicked out of schools previously because he has a meeting with his principal, and the principal's like, listen, your test scores are off the chart. Like, you're a good kid. Like, don't be a problem. You won't be a problem.
I always love that, how they're like, look, we want you to like this guy who's a delinquent, so he's really smart.
Yeah.
Because stupid people don't deserve good things. So
he's reading Shakespeare too.
Yeah, that is true. He seems to like Shakespeare. I mean, I'm a high school dropout, and I was not a sexy genius like David Spader.
So that's when we also meet Robert Downey Jr.'s character, who is Johnny in the class, and he is introduced because they're watching a film on the Old West and the frontiersmen and whatnot. We see kids that are playing like with guns and like their finger guns and whatnot.
Yeah.
And just fucking whips out a switchblade.
Yeah, and just like pops it out.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, I didn't know it came out that quick. And then he gives it to Morgan, and he's just like, you're going to need this. Like, because he knows that, like...
I thought that was on him. I thought he got it.
Did he get it off him?
I thought he got it off of him. That was the vibe I got. That's why he said,
what I thought.
I didn't know how to close it. I didn't know whatever.
Because I was like, why would he take it out? Okay, that makes more sense.
I think he just like pulled it out of his pocket.
Yeah.
Which tells you what kind of troublemaker he is, that he's just like sitting behind you. Again, but it tells you a lot about the character.
Yeah.
He didn't do it to rob him. He did it because he's weird and yeah.
Jimmy, not Johnny. My
Jimmy,
apologies.
thank you.
Yeah,
Jeez.
Jimmy. And Jimmy also tells him that like basically you're probably going to need it because he knows that he's pulled some shit already. So he knows that he's got some guff on his back.
Were you ever the new kid other than normal moving along?
Nope. We never moved to a point of that, and the only time that I like felt like a legitimate new kid was going from elementary school to junior high.
Man, so I was the new kid one time, not from, going to the next school.
Mm-hmm.
It was rough, dude. Some dudes were like picking a fight with me all the time. Girls didn't want to talk to me. And I just realized life is shit. It was the worst third grade year of my life.
God.
I was the new kid in third grade.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was funny. Like, it was funny though, because you really do kind of walk in and just go, is there anyone vaguely like me?
Yeah. I mean, at least...
May I sit with you?
You can't ever do the thing that Drew Barrymore does in Donnie Darko with just sit next to the boy that you think is the cutest.
Honestly, that would have been the smartest move.
Yeah. So that is when, after class, we see Nick and Frankie have taken Morgan's bike, and they're just having a nice little joyride out with it right out in the open while cars are circling them.
Yeah.
And Morgan, of course, takes note of this. He goes up to Nick, and Nick's like, we're just trying your bike out. Do you want it back? And eventually gives it back to him, throwing it down. But by this point, one of the cars has raced to the other side of the parking lot and is coming right at Morgan.
Yeah.
And what does Morgan do? He puts the brakes on the bike, tries to swing it, but it gets hit by the car and thrown into the air.
Yeah, the guy jerks the wheel just in the nick of time to not smash him as well and just wrecks his bike. It gets thrown up in the air like 15 feet.
Mm-hmm.
it's cartoonish.
Yes.
How the bike flies through the air. And they make it like a really tragic moment, which I thought was funny. It was because I think when we were watching, I was like, my grandfather brought this bike over from the old country.
Well, what's funny too is like he doesn't really have a change in his emotion the entire. He gets sprayed in the face with like spray paint at one point.
Yeah, well,
and
he's
cool. He's
David.
cool. He's cool.
Yeah, it's funny now that you say that it was originally supposed to be Rebel Without the Cause remake.
Yeah,
it kind of is for like the first 8 minutes.
So is Cool as Ice for a smidge.
Cool as Ice is anything you want it to be.
That is very
so
true.
much more.
Oh boy. So that's when Morgan returns home and he's working on his bike in his bedroom and his mom comes in and she's like, that was a $500 bike and gives him shit because again, he's been kicked out of schools. His attitude's not great and he's nothing like his brother because his brother is the shining example of a son.
Yeah. And I got a sense when we meet his brother later, they mentioned that he's currently becoming a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I got a sense too that one of the reasons they downsized was to keep him in school.
Yeah.
To keep paying for his schooling because obviously it'll pay off.
And that definitely makes sense.
Yeah. And Spader, later on, he goes, he and some friends, they crash a country club.
Yeah.
And it's great because Spader knows exactly how to talk to rich
knows
people.
The lingo,
and talk
knows
like
the
them.
look.
It's very funny.
So good.
Super funny.
So that is when, before we had the scene of him going and finding his bike, Jimmy invited him to see his band play at a warehouse. So he told him that it was going to be tonight and basically to follow the street, walk past the porno shops, turn left, and he'll be there. So after that, he goes out to see his band, but of course he doesn't have his bike. He's trying to walk. He's trying to hitch a ride. And then he finds a car with keys just left in the ignition.
Yeah.
So he steals a Corvette.
Yep. And then he gets to this middle of nowhere warehouse. And this is when I started to notice something about this movie.
Yeah.
The dudes just don't wear shirts a lot.
They do not. It's because
They
we're
just
having
don't.
the Jim Carroll band play, which is an actual musician, and Downey is on the drums, shirtless, wearing glasses around his neck.
Yeah, I thought it was a bow tie at first because they'd cut away really fast.
Yeah.
It looked like he was just wearing a bow tie and no shirt. Now, I will give it to Downey. Drummers often, especially in like high energy bands, they're often the ones who always have no shirt on because they are so physical.
Yeah.
But
I don't think he was playing those drums.
I don't think so either. And there were a lot of scenes where I was like, why are these dudes shirtless?
Yeah. Yeah. So Jim Carroll band's playing, Downey's working on the drums, and if you think this movie has a shortage of music, don't worry. Don't worry.
Don't you worry at all.
Jim Carroll band's going along, so Morgan walks in, and he immediately sees after a while that Frankie is also here. But he doesn't realize that Nick and his cronies are there as well. But he decides to take the opportunity to steal her for a dance, and steal her indeed, because he forces her to dance with him for about a good solid minute and a half for being like, get away from me, what are you doing? And everyone's choreographed this dance apparently in this warehouse.
Yeah, because this was the moment when I really realized the film was so entirely out of touch with young people.
Yeah.
Because a year earlier was Breakin'.
And Breakin' 2.
Well, and Breakin', you can say what you want about Breakin', but the reason it was successful was it actually did represent the youth culture going on. Now, we may look back and go, wow, that was cheesy, but in the earliest days of hip hop, breakdancing was a major element of it.
Yeah.
It was at a point where gangster rap was just being born, and it was still kind of light and fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, and the reason I know gangster rap was born was because Ice-T's in it. And he was, the first. I don't want to hear your disagreements. He was the first gangster rap artist.
Jean-Claude Van Damme's also in it.
Yeah, that's true. but Breakin' was able to depict here's some young people. Here's how they get in trouble. Here's how they stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
Here's how they do all these things. It really connected, and it made an assload of money at the box office. And then there's this movie.
Yes, and then there's this movie.
Yeah.
So naturally, the dancing with Frankie draws Nick's attention. Also, Frankie's friend Ronnie takes attention of it, and Nick sends his guys over to break it up. Spader starts dancing with one of his guys at one point, then throws him to the side. They go running out. Nick sends Frankie home with Ronnie, and that's when they go after Morgan. And outside, they catch up to Morgan. They're about to kick his ass, and they do. They kick him in the balls a couple times and basically threaten him, you're the new kid here, don't fuck with us.
Yeah.
And then they steal his car. But if you remember correctly, that's not his car.
It was already stolen.
So Jimmy comes out and he checks on him and he's like, man, I can't believe they took your wheels. He's like, oh, they're not mine. So they get arrested by the cops. They're joyriding, and what's hilarious too is they're taking the radio out and dropping it in the car, and then they immediately get pulled over and arrested.
Yeah.
So that is when Morgan returns home and he finds his brother with his mom, and they're having some caviar and some champagne out in front of the apartment.
He's wearing a sweater tied around his, like over his shoulders.
Yeah.
With the sleeves. Yeah. It's very, very bougie and waspy.
And Morgan even asked him if he can borrow the car, and his brother's like, well, I was going to take Mom to the movie soon, so, any other time it'd be fine. And he's like, you know what, forget about it. And that's when he goes to walk, and suddenly the car from Nick's gang passes.
Yeah.
And then it stops and comes at chasing him right down an alley. So Morgan is running through the alley. He's trying to climb walls, climbs to a fence, falls off the fence, and that's when the door opens to the car, revealing Jimmy, who stole Nick's buddy's car.
Yes.
And so Morgan gets in, they're driving the car just around, and one of my favorite things about this is Jimmy is just throwing cassette tapes out the window.
Yeah, he's like, I think this is his favorite.
Yeah, it's his favorite. Just throwing it out.
That's what I'm going to do in your car next time.
I will kill you. I will kill you.
He has cassette tapes in his car.
Oh, I do, because I still have a cassette deck in my car. So that's when we also see that Frankie and Ronnie are at a burger joint, and they're talking about Nick is in jail. They don't know when he's going to get out, and Frankie has had enough of it, so she goes to leave, and Ronnie's like, hey, I'm eating my burger, which she gets rubbed into her face.
Which is so funny, because I swear, like, she's cleaning up the mess that girl made on her for like 3 or 4 shots. It just keeps being more mayo on her face every time they cut.
So that's when naturally Morgan is driving past in Nick's car. They think it's Nick. They run up and they both get in the car and they're just going to go joyride for a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of joyriding in this film.
Jimmy and Ronnie are making out in the back hardcore, except if you zoom in on Downey's face.
I was say making out is no Downey. I think he was supposed to be doing it too.
Yeah,
but he's like somewhat reticent and resistant.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden he just kind of is like, whatever.
Yeah, and they're just
like,
laying down.
She's like biting at his face, biting at his neck, and he's like occasionally gently like sneaking one little kiss and then like pulling away.
Yeah.
It's actually really funny.
It is.
And strange.
So Morgan's like, why won't you give me a chance, Frankie? Why do you like Nick and all this stuff? And they end up just having a pleasure cruise, going to Beverly Hills, driving past all these nice houses, and then they eventually get to a country club.
Yeah.
And that's when Jimmy is like, are we going to, catch off and tee off? He's like, no, I think we're going to take a bite. And he's like, every Friday is junior's night at these places. Like, it's the same thing. Follow my drift.
The one girl, when she's like, wow, look at this front yard. It's huge. And he goes, that's a golf course.
That's a golf course, Ronnie. So they go into the country club. They're putting up a huge schmooze. They've got their little sweaters toqued up. They got ties on. And,
one of my favorite scenes of the whole film.
Yeah, and they immediately are found out by the guy, and he talks his way through it. He's just like, oh, no, they'll vouch for us. And they sneak into the buffet.
What he does is he says like, oh, I left it with my rackets and the thing. And he just starts.
Reynolds.
He just starts weaving a tapestry of white people names.
Yeah.
Well, but Linda and
Carl
and the whatever, they can vouch for me when you see them next. Let them know I said hello, by the way, because I didn't catch them today. He just does all that until the guy just kind of goes, all right, have a good time.
So they sneak off. There's a band playing Shake It Up Baby now, and there's just a whole montage at this point of just jokes happening between him schmoozing with people. You've got Downey eating off this dude's plate, talking
right
about
in front of him.
Right in front of him.
But the funniest part about that was, like, the reason the guy's not freaking out is like the food's free.
Yeah.
Like he could just go get another plate.
Yeah.
Downey is literally just taking things and eating them as he's talking.
Talking about you shouldn't mix these two together, it'll be bad.
And then at the end of the conversation, he just takes the plate
Takes
from
the plate,
him and
leaves him with a glass. It's so good.
It's really good. Spader is just spitting buzzwords. But my favorite is what's the girl who was into Downey? What's her character name?
Ronnie.
Ronnie.
Yeah.
Is just with these like 3 waspy young girls and just talking about sex in like the most graphic way, and they're all fascinated,
loving it, and also chiming in.
Yeah, no, it's really the best scene.
You got to swallow, right?
Yeah, and they're all like, yeah. Like, it's super funny.
So Spader thinks they're going to get found out, so he does one more ploy, which is taking Frankie to the piano. He has her sit on the piano, and then he freaking sings a song.
Yeah, well.
Art Carney's son sings a song in Spader's voice.
Yes, yeah. No, and it was a really cute scene.
Yeah. And you see her being won over by him.
Yeah. And they have decent chemistry.
Yeah.
They have decent chemistry.
And people are dancing to the song. The song ends, and the guy comes up, and he's like, you've never been a member here and never will be, and kicks them out.
Yeah, I love that on their way out, she takes a whole lobster.
Downey's caught with a freaking baguette in his pants.
A giant, like a 2.5 foot long baguette. Yeah. And they're like, and they take that from him. It's really funny.
So they leave the country club, and that's when Frankie and Morgan are just kind of walking along, and you find out that like Morgan's been kicked out of school. He kind of opens up to her, and Frankie even open up because like her mom passed a couple years ago because of cancer. It's just her and her dad, and there's not really any plan, and that's why she kind of feels stuck with Nick.
Well, she tells him her plan is to get married because you don't have to finish high school to do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, shit. Oh, okay.
So they have a really sweet scene. And then we get to my favorite scene of the movie.
Oh, yeah?
Where we meet Jack Mack and the heart attack. Would you like to take it from here?
Well, I was not familiar with Jack Mack and the heart attack, but they are I want to say 8 or 11 piece.
9 to 11, yeah.
Well, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't 9/11.
Shut up.
But they're a large R&B funk fusion band.
Yes.
The guy, Jack Mack, I'm guessing, he has a great voice.
Yes.
He is basically just doing Little Richard, maybe a little bit of James Brown. He's kind of impersonating their voices. He's a good singer.
Yeah.
But the thing that blew my mind was you have an R&B band doing funk pieces.
Yes.
Not a single black guy in the whole band.
None.
They have 5 horn players, a keyboardist, not a single black guy.
Not a single.
No. That was the whitest R&B band I've ever seen in my life.
But they throw down.
Oh, they're fine.
Yeah.
They're good. But like, it was blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the scene is fine. They're just at like another dance
Oh, yeah.
club.
Well, but you have a dance, but then you have Frankie who just completely tears the place up because she's leaping from table to table, going up on the bar.
Ape. Yeah. And the other thing is people are all shocked because like, this person's alive.
Yeah.
Like, because everybody else is just kind of and she's just going berserk.
I think my favorite comment was, this is the whitest scene of the whole movie.
And shockingly, it still is, even though this movie's pretty white. It's a pretty damn white movie.
Yeah, so she tears up the room, and again, her and Morgan are kind of swooning for each other. But then we cut back to Nick and his gang. They're by the car, but we also find out that Frankie's dad owns a liquor store, works at a liquor store.
It looked like he manages or owns it.
Yeah, their apartment is above it, and Nick is confronting her because she's been out with Morgan, and he's pissed. And long story short, she basically tells him, don't be so rough with me. Like, I say when we're going to have sex, because that's a really skeevy line that's thrown in there.
Yeah.
And
the movie has no sense of balance of tone.
Yeah.
It gets really heavy really fast.
Yeah.
And it gives you whiplash, but not in a way that I feel is good.
Yeah.
It more makes it absurd when it gets so serious.
Well, because, you have Nick basically go down on Frankie in the most uncomfortable scene possible.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
No, it was not.
No.
But then we immediately cut to a locker room.
Yay.
Let the good times roll.
Yeah, let the good times.
So Morgan's in the locker room. He's getting dressed after class. The radio's playing, and there's guys around him, and he asks somebody to turn up the radio. But then we start to see that locks are being taken off of lockers. We see keys being rolled up into towels, and then the locker room slowly disperses.
Yeah, and then they start beating the hell out of him.
Yeah.
But two of the guys have no shirts on, even though they weren't even in gym class or whatever.
Yep.
Very strange,
very
moments.
brutal scene.
It is.
Because they wail on him, and Nick even tells him, don't mess with my girl. Like, this is your one warning, and even knocks him out with like a hit to the face. But they whip him for like a solid 40 seconds.
It rips his back to pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is when we see that Morgan's father is at home, and he's with his mother, who returns with some Perrier.
Of course, that was the other funny. Yeah, she's like she's undoing she's like unloading the groceries.
Yeah.
And there's just a huge pack of Perrier, and I was like, yeah, they're slumming it.
They're struggling.
Yeah, they're trying.
So his dad's at the table looking at his real estate license book, and that's when we hear Morgan come in, and he doesn't say anything to his parents, goes straight upstairs. His dad goes up to see him, and he sees all the welts on him, and he's like, I can handle it. It's not anything major, and that's when his dad has one of my favorite lines, which is, son, life is not a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived.
I actually think that's
it's a solid line.
It's a pretty poetic line, especially for Tuff Turf.
Yeah, for Tuff Turf, it is definitely poetic. So that's when Morgan basically decides that he is going to go after Frankie again, because Frankie is sitting at home, and she's kind of like sitting in front of her mirror, like doing a whole fabulous, because that's what Morgan said at the club, was to say fabulous. And all of a sudden a radio starts playing. She goes out to her window, and Morgan's sitting out there with his radio, doing a Say Anything to her before Say Anything had even come out.
It wasn't holding the radio.
He wasn't.
Yeah. And she's like, please stop. And they've referenced that her boyfriend's on the way.
Yeah.
And it's
he basically begs her for one chance. He's like, hey, come have dinner with me and my family tomorrow. And she's like, okay, I will. And just as that happens, she gets him out of the door, because he's like, oh, I'll go answer the door, like going to see Nick.
Because her boyfriend's knocking.
Yeah.
And he's like, you want me to answer?
Yeah.
Which is really funny.
So he climbs out the window, and she basically finds out that Nick has asked her father for her hand in marriage without asking her.
Well.
And her dad said yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, It is a traditional thing to ask permission.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just come in. He's got
champagne, which he takes a swig out of the bottle after being like, how do you open this?
Oh my gosh. And the dad's just thrilled.
Yeah.
He's just thrilled to pieces.
Yes. So that is when the next day, Morgan is at school. Jimmy comes up to him and he's like, hey, man, I fixed up this bike. It's yours. He gives it to him as a gift for a consolation. And he's like, consolation for what? And he's like, oh, you're so funny. He finds out that they're engaged.
Yeah, he did not know. His buddy assumed, because everybody seemed to know.
Yeah.
He assumed that he knew too.
So that's when he rides off on the bike through the quad, getting the security guard's attention again. Finds Frankie and confronts her, and he's just like, you don't want to do this. Like, what are you doing? And she's just like, don't worry, I'll still have dinner with your family tonight, which she does.
Wow. So you deserve, because you mentioned it right before it started.
Yeah.
They're eating like green beans
Yeah.
and salad and what looks like chicken nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
And go on. No, you please.
The Foley work on this chicken nuggets meal is some of the crunchiest chicken nuggets I have ever heard in my life.
Every time somebody takes a bite, it is like the best kettle chip you've ever had in sound.
Yes.
And all I could think as I looked at their table where they had wine glasses and a nice salad and these green beans was, look, I get that they're trying to save money, but buying frozen chicken nuggets is not much cheaper than like cooking 2 chicken breasts. And it doesn't seem like they don't know how to cook because they like made all the other food. So it's really bizarre.
So the dinner's going well. Morgan's dressed up. His parents are dressed up. They're having conversation. And that's when his mother brings up to Frankie about going to see one of the local gardens there that has really nice roses. And he's like, well, Frankie doesn't really do that thing. And she's like, oh, well, if you haven't been before, we can all go. You can bring your mother. Well, she likes flowers, doesn't she?
I mean, she's not wrong.
She's not wrong.
I mean, I'm sure people bring her flowers.
I'm sure people do bring her flowers. So naturally, Frankie gets upset and Morgan tries to smooth it over, but she leaves. While this has happened, though, Nick and his cronies have snuck up and seen her at dinner with his family.
Yeah.
So Morgan goes to leave, and that's when his dad is trying to catch him, and he's like, I'm gonna go figure this out. Morgan goes walking off. We see Nick and his cronies in the car, and they're just like, are we going to get him now? And he's like, no, first, let's go catch up with my girlfriend. So Frankie's walking across the street. They pull up beside her, and he's like, hey, get in the car. We're going to go have some fun. She gets in. They share a drink. They're riding out, and then they end up riding through the night because Nick is looking for something specifically.
Yeah.
So eventually, Nick finds what he's looking for. The sun is coming up at this point. It's late. And he's like, hey, Frankie, we're almost out of gas. Take my watch. Go hawk it to that cab driver. See if we'll give you some dough. And then we'll get everything else taken care of.
I was like, is that a thing?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah. So she goes to take the watch at first. And she's like, I bought you this watch. And he's like, yeah, but, I wouldn't ask you to if I didn't have any money. So she gets out. Immediately sees that the cab driver is Mr. Hiller.
Yeah, and
so
she
Morgan's
refuses,
father.
And he's like, tell me the real reason. It's not because of the watch.
Yeah.
She goes over and tries to warn him to get out of there. They start trying to beat the crap out of him, but the old guy is beating the shit out of them.
Yes, he is.
Great scene. He's kneeing them in the crotch and slamming their heads into the car, but eventually the big bad boyfriend
Nick gets pushed and pulls a gun and shoots Morgan's father twice in the chest, and it is abrupt.
Yeah, no, it really feels weird.
It's when the movie
doesn't really make sense.
Really steps up to where it's just like, oh shit.
Except then it goes back to its normal tone until basically the end.
Till the end, yeah. Because Morgan then goes to visit his father at the hospital. The nurse is like, he'll be okay. He's strong. Frankie and him cross past the hospital. They end up going back to her place or to his house. He tends her wounds, and also they end up having sex. The next morning, she goes to visit her father and tells him that she doesn't want to marry Nick. Nick comes out of nowhere in the freaking liquor store, charges her father, throws him around, throws Frankie around, loses his fucking temper, basically has Frankie call to Morgan to meet at the warehouse in 20 minutes. So Morgan gets the call. He goes to his drawer, gets his pellet guns, or dart guns.
Yeah.
Gets stopped by his brother because his brother is like, hey, Dad's doing okay. He asked about you, but I want you to tell me what's going on. And Morgan basically tells his brother, I'm handling it.
Yeah.
So we cut to the climax of Tuff Turf.
Yeah, and guys, if you think that it sounds like abrupt the way we're describing it, we're describing it accurately. So now all of a sudden, it's like 2 dick hairs shy of the class of 1984.
When he walks in, like I told you, it looks like the final stage of a video game boss because all his buddies are around him. He's got Frankie out in the middle, and he's holding the gun, just waiting on him. Morgan sneaks into the second floor. He knocks out one of the guys, drops a sign on two of the guys, swings in like Errol Flynn, kicks Nick. They get into a huge brawl.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's insane. And I mean, when I say a huge brawl, like their fight goes for at least 5 minutes, ending with him grabbing a 2x4 with nails in it. Then Morgan gets a fire axe, starts chasing Nick up the steps.
Yes.
Kicks the fire axe out of his hand. They get into a tussle. He knocks out Nick, and like he's bloody. He's looking like ravaged at this point. He looks down at Frankie. Frankie's okay. Nick sneaks up. He knocks Nick off the balcony, who plummets second floor down, lands on a sign, looks at Frankie. End of the movie, so we think, except we cut back to the club, and Jack Mack and the Heart Attack is playing.
And everybody, basically everybody except his dad.
And the bullies.
Mom. Yeah, and the bullies, because they're all effectively dead. And yeah, they all are just hanging out, having a good time, listening to Jack Mack and the Heart Attack.
And even Jack Mack and the Heart Attack goes, hey, is that the same girl from last time? Everybody move out of the way.
Yeah, let it dance.
The credits play, and that is 1985's Tuff Turf.
And no one that got hurt, or no one that mattered got hurt. And my God. So they tried to make the villain, they tried to make him worth getting killed.
Oh, yeah.
But they didn't do a very good job.
No.
They could really, what the movie was missing was just a few scenes of them just doing some crime.
Yeah.
Like, because they open with them seeming like they do crime.
Like they do crime, yeah.
But then all of a sudden they're not. Like, they could have had one scene where, like, they mug a guy and like think they killed him and they leave him there so that you know he's capable of murder.
Yeah.
That could have, but the movie really feels like maybe 2 movies, maybe even 3, that are just kind of stitched together. So it really is jarring. And the violence is not jarring in a way that makes you appreciate how violent it is.
Mm-hmm.
The violence is jarring as you're like, wait, what? Did I miss something that makes this make sense?
I mean, I forgot to also mention that Jimmy shows up at the final fight with 2 dogs that attack the 2 gang members, and he also gets shot in the leg.
Yeah, it's freaking out of its mind. And he shows up at the club with
the
cast on his leg. So it is. I can see why people love it.
Yeah,
because it is really wacky and fun. It's silly. The thing that threw me was just that the seriousness was definitely all over the place. Mm-hmm. There was, like I said, it didn't feel like there was much cohesion.
No.
That was the big problem.
No.
But that doesn't mean it wasn't like a wacky ride.
Yeah.
The nostalgia was really fun. But yeah, and honestly, how out of touch it is. It is so like, it's funny because New World is a indie company, sort of, but like it really felt like a bunch of old white guys got together and said, okay, we're making this, because at least Golan and Globus over at Canon, when they were making Breakin', at least they could admit they were like, we know nothing about this.
Yeah.
We'll throw money at it. We are from Israel, So that's why Breakin' works so well, is because they just kind of went, fine, until 2. Because 2 was where they meddled.
They meddled a bit.
So, yeah.
So, no budget given, unfortunately.
Shocker. If I had to guess, I'd say about 4.
Okay.
4 to 6
I was
million.
thinking 6, 7, yeah.
Maybe. It feels a little high for that movie, but yeah.
Opening weekend, U.S., Canada, which is January 13th, 1985, $1,509 taken in.
Not a terrible opening.
Grossing worldwide, $9,369,000.
I mean, I'm sure it wasn't their biggest loss. They might have even made a little bit on that.
It's possible, yeah. Reportedly, the movie was written in 3 weeks and filming completed in 4 weeks, according to an article published in the 11th January 1985 issue of the Los Angeles Times newspaper. The period of principal photography on this picture was a production shoot that ran for about a month in 1984 between early mid-July and early mid-August.
Huh.
Opening titles done after principal photography was done. Dark, noirish environment and had Santa Monica stolen shots, basically. So they were riding around Santa Monica and they were stopped by the police twice.
Of course.
They did it with no lights, only the cameras. So it was all natural light that they filmed that opening with.
Of course. Yeah, I believe that.
Opening sequence was influenced by Once Upon a Time in the West, a calm situation growing out of control.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Editor Mark Grossman had worked with the director previously on commercials and was pulled into the project due to their work history.
Oh, okay.
First theatrical feature film and top billed role for James Spader. Downey originally auditioned for the role of Morgan, but it was said that one look at the smile made it clear that he was perfect as the best friend.
Well, real quick, I want to mention, because I think Breakin' is the perfect example of what happens when like there's a slick Hollywood movie, but it actually has a little bit more bite.
Yeah.
Breakin', $1.2 million budget, made $38.7 million at the box office. It was a huge hit.
Yeah, it was.
So I just wanted to, like, that's kind of the difference. But Breakin' is loved for very different reasons than Tuff Turf is. Tuff Turf is loved for how wacky, disjointed, and often bizarre it is. And I think that has value.
Due to the staging of the Los Angeles Summer Olympics during mid-1984, the filmmakers had to relocate its filming locations. As such, the production moved to other sites in LA and California, which included Reseda and San Fernando Valley.
Oh.
Robert Downey Jr. became good friends with James Spader and even named his cat Jimmy in honor of him. Aww. They would appear together again in Less Than Zero in 1987 and Avengers: Age of Ultron in 2015.
Oh yeah, where they were both really getting those big fat paychecks.
Yeah,
I always forget Spader was Ultron.
Yeah. Yes, he was. James Spader is merely lip syncing during the piano scene. The song "We Walk the Night" is performed by Paul Carney, one of the sons of actor Art Carney.
Aww.
The band in the movie, the Jim Carroll Band, frontman Jim Carroll wrote The Basketball Diaries, 1978, that detailed his teenage drug years and was later made into the movie of the same name with DiCaprio.
Oh, yeah.
The band also has a song on the soundtrack of Tuff Turf, which was People Who Died, which is only available on that soundtrack.
And then it got used in the Suicide Squad. So clearly, Mr. James Gunn, big fan of Tuff Turf.
He must be.
Yeah.
Nick and his gang stealing the car and joyriding down the street was an homage to Clockwork Orange.
I believe that.
Yeah. The original ending in the script had Morgan and Jimmy taking the SATs and Morgan talking Frankie into taking them too after she quips she isn't smart enough.
That would have made the movie even more bizarre if they had they had then stuck the landing of and now we're all going to college.
Yeah. A body double was used for the nude scene with Kim Richards, who was playing the Frankie Croydon character. The scene with the bike, a certain type of blocking was used to make the viewer feel as disoriented as Morgan is all that's taking place within the scene.
Okay, I can see that.
Due to scheduled demolition, the scene had to be shot out in one day as they were going to lose the location site.
I believe that too by the looks of it. Jeez.
Color transitions were used to signify the ending of story points. Because remember, there's a fade to red, a fade to white.
Yeah, there is. No, that's a good point. Yeah.
All jokes in the country club were done as pickup shots on a set built weeks later from the interior of the club.
Oh, okay. Great scenes.
The director does not like the scene with Spader at the piano because he feels it came off too serious and takes impact out of the following scene where Frankie opens up about her mother.
Too serious?
Yeah.
I mean, fair enough.
Yeah. Daylight is apparent in night scenes with Nick driving. The director commented that it was due to the fact that it was a light you couldn't change. It was just daylight back then. This is also due to the fact that most night shoots for the film would start at night and go until sunrise.
Yeah, I mean, that happens.
Color and camera stops really led to the impact of Morgan's father getting shot. The director and the editor worked for that on a week in editing.
Okay, I believe that too. There are a lot of really interesting kinetic edits, especially to the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Spader pulled his intensity for the hospital scene for JD's portray in Rebel Without a Cause. That was basically his inspiration, was the scene, I guess his father dies in that movie. I haven't seen Rebel Without a Cause in forever.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The final fight sequence was the most choreographed action sequence of the entire film. And finally, the movie ran out of money for the story arc conclusion with its characters. The director decided to end the film with a return to Jack Mack and the Heart Attack with the budget remaining.
Well, I guess Jack Mack was willing to work at a discount.
Yeah. So what are your final thoughts on 1985's Tuff Turf?
I would have to say, wow. It's a nutsoid movie.
Yes.
Really fun. I would give it a stream it.
Okay.
But with a lot of love. And if you love just that weirdo 80s era, then it's a rent it. Because that is such a strange, it's such an oddball, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Spader's great, even though no matter how young he is, he has a 48-year-old's face. It's expression, not anything else. But I liked it. It was cool to see a lot of young of those actors being young. A lot of the side characters were people who became very big character actors in other films.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun, but the whole concept that this is the Tuff Turf is the part that just makes the movie feel kind of like a fever dream sometimes.
It does, yeah. It's a stream it for me as well. This is definitely a acquired taste movie. It is like I said, what is probably going to be a cult classic. It's one movie that you really have to see if you're curious about the infamy of Tuff Turf, but it's not a must-watch. This is definitely for a select crowd.
I like that you rate it as a stream it when you own it on Blu-ray.
Goddamn right I do. And I own the soundtrack on vinyl and cassette.
Of course you do, buddy.
Goddamn right.
So real quick.
Yes, sir.
You want to check in with old Roger Ebert?
I would love to check in with Mr. Ebert.
See what Mr. Ebert has to say about this film.
I bet it's not nice.
Oh, well, we'll find out. I mean, Ebert's from Chicago, and they're known for some Tuff Turf. So maybe he'll know something.
Let's find out.
Tuff Turf is a real confused movie. Part of the time, I guess it wants to be rebel without a cause, with James Spader being so agonized and so hung up that he can hardly even bother to be able to say anything, which is just as well because the dialogue is so bad. Part of the time, it's like a beach party movie. Everybody's going to go down and to the old country club and dance and sing all night long.
And this was before you joined up with Siskel.
The movie wants to be the Warriors with lots of chains and guns and knife and bloodshed.
I agree.
Also not wrong.
And the amazing thing is, none of this stuff works. This movie is so bad, it doesn't even know how to spell tough right. I give it half a star. I'm Roger Ebert.
Damn, Ebert. All right, then.
Ebert, you are a goat.
That's fair.
That was quite... you know what? At least that was thought out.
Yeah.
It didn't have a take that made no sense.
Yeah. He did call it the worst teen exploitation film of that year.
Well, that's quite the praise.
So we always like to end the show with a couple recommendations. I have two this week, starting with another return to Spader, which is one I cannot recommend enough. 1985's The New Kids, which is currently available on Tubi and Prime.
Talk about a wild ride.
Fucking insane.
Sean
Newly
Cunningham
orphaned.
directed it.
Yeah, newly orphaned siblings Abby and Lauren McWilliams arrive in small Florida town to help their Aunt Faye and Uncle Charlie run a family-owned amusement park. They soon find out the town is terrorized by a local street gang who is led by James Spader in that movie.
Yeah, it is a crazy, crazy film. I can't recommend enough.
Yeah.
And that movie is just out of its mind.
It is out of its mind. And my other recommendation, which I think is one I've recommended before, but perfect fill for this one, 1984 Savage Streets, starring Linda Blair. Brenda, vivacious leader of the Satins, a fun-loving group of pretty high school girls, searches for deadly vengeance against the gang members who assaulted her deaf-mute sister. This one is, I wouldn't say so much of a fun movie. It's got some very rough moments to it, which I think I've said before.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
Also, it's not very easy to find. You can get a Blu-ray if you're lucky, but as far as streaming goes, I will say that there is a popular video hosting site that does have it up in its entirety right now.
Ooh.
That's the best place you're going to find it right now.
So,
what'd you pick?
When I was thinking about what to pick, I was torn because initially I was thinking, what are some films that remind me of this?
Yeah.
And that would be some ridiculous shit like Malibu High that I love, but it's out of its mind.
Yes.
Or Massacre at Central High, another out of its mind, but really fun. But then I started thinking, not just about movies, but about my roots. And the fact that I grew up in a pretty tough turf.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, you know what I would team this movie with to give a proper palate cleanser, to give some real understanding of that kind of world? You're going to be surprised, but 1988's Stand and Deliver.
Shit, yeah. Yeah.
Ramon Mendes's, in my opinion, masterpiece.
Yes.
Starring Edward James Olmos and Lou Diamond Phillips.
Yes.
The story of Jaime Escalante, a high school teacher who successfully inspired his dropout-prone students to learn calculus.
We need to cover that on the show. I love that movie.
It's one of my favorite films. I love it. I haven't revisited it in forever, but I remember the impact it had on me. I grew up with a lot of kids. I mean, I ended up being a dropout, but not for the reasons a lot of people.
My 8th grade teacher showed that movie to us in school. That's how I saw it.
You know, it's a good movie to watch in school. It's
fantastic.
It's a great film. So that's my recommendation. Stand and Deliver, which I don't think you can. It's just for rent on Amazon.
It just got a Blu-ray release from Warner Archive.
I saw it because I want to get it at some point.
Yeah, no, it's definitely worth it. So do we have any emails this week?
Oh, my goodness, we do.
Oh, we do?
We actually got some this afternoon.
Oh, baby.
Both of them, well, it's 2 emails. It's a 2-part email. So, but it's from our buddy Wolfdan.
Okay.
The first one, the subject line is just Twilight/Kristen Stewart. He says, Enrique, if you're serious about getting Twilight for David's birthday, Walmart has the 5-movie collection for pretty cheap.
I have all of them in my voodoo.
And Kristen makes a damn hot vampire. He is very in love with Kristen Stewart.
I'm aware.
As for On the Road, anyone who is waiting for Kristen Stewart to be nude in a movie will not be disappointed.
God damn.
And then continued in this next email, I would probably be considered a twihard, LOL. I turned my wife onto the series when I saw a Twilight poster with Kristen Stewart. I've always been a fan of hers. By the way, if I didn't mention it in the previous email, if you get Dave the collection, I'll request you guys cover it. Laughing, crying emoji.
Never happening.
Oh, come on. Do you even movie? I had to, LOL. So thank you very much, Wolfdan.
Yes, thank you, Wolfdan.
And if you guys want to email us, all you have to do is send a little message to doyouevenmoviepod@gmail.com. gmail.com.
Yes.
That's doyouevenmoviepod@gmail.com, or go to doyouevenmovie.com for all the information about us. And if you love what we're doing here, again, March 1st on Saturday, March 1st, we'll be doing a live stream from noon to probably midnight. Yeah. And you can find all the information and set yourself a reminder on YouTube by going to weeklyspooky.com/live. And if you love what we're doing, also, if you're watching us on YouTube, leave a like.
Yes.
If you're watching us on or listening to us on the podcast feed, make sure to leave a 5-star rating. It really does help the show out. Tell a friend, subscribe, etc., etc., etc. The turf, my friends, just is not that tough.
So, speaking of Tuff Turf, as we close out February, would you like to know what we are doing for our March theme and what our first movie is going to be?
Yes, because I think this is going to be really interesting because most people probably don't know these movies very well at all.
So, yeah. if you were a fan of Hulu during the dark times, was it COVID?
It was pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID, okay. There was a Blumhouse series that was, I want to say it was released 2019. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it ended during COVID.
Yeah, 2018 was the first drop because it was Halloween, and then So 2018, they started a series called Into the Dark, and this was a 2-season series that basically focused on little short films that revolved around the holidays.
Well, they weren't short; they were feature length.
They
were 81 to 93 minutes.
Yeah,
but it was an anthology of feature films made by Blumhouse.
Yeah, and all horror based around the holidays. We are going to be marching into the dark for March and kicking it off with 2019's Down, which is 2 co-workers find themselves stranded in an elevator over Valentine's Day weekend.
And it's a really
good
great
one.
There were some that weren't awesome.
Yeah.
There were some that were just kind of fun. There were, in my opinion, only a few that really were dogs.
Yeah.
But there were several that were really great. So we're going to dive into our favorite episodes of Into the Dark. We're going to talk all about them.
All of them available on Hulu still.
Yeah, and we'll even talk about some of our honorable mentions as we go.
Yes, we will.
It'll be a lot of fun, so make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcasting app or on YouTube, because we'll be back here, and we'll be talking all about them.
Yes, it's going to be a great time.
All right, so I guess all that's left to be said is we will indeed
see you next Tuesday.
Assuming the turf
is not so tough.
Exactly.
And those streets are not so savage.
And all 9 of those funk musicians are white guys. See you guys.